What happens when the perfect life you built crumbles in a single night? And you bet everything on the one man they told you to fear? Alara Vance's engagement exploded under crystal chandeliers when she found her fiancé tangled with her own sister. Her response? She marched across that ballroom and proposed to Kyle Draven, the exiled heir everyone whispers about, but nobody touches. What started as revenge became a war neither could walk away from. Stick with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The champagne tasted like metal. Alara Vance held the crystal flute between her fingers and stared at the bubbles rising, popping at the surface like tiny, desperate breaths. Around her, the Ashford estate hummed with wealth, the kind that didn't need to announce itself, the kind sewn into silk curtains and hand-carved molding, and the polite laughter of people who measured their words by the quarter ounce. She'd been coming to these parties since she was 16. 10 years of smiling at the right moments, knowing which fork to use, understanding that silence sometimes spoke louder than any sentence you could construct. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was hers. She glanced down at the engagement ring on her left hand, a flawless 3-carat diamond set in platinum, tasteful, expensive, exactly what Dominic Hale would choose. He'd proposed 3 months ago on a yacht in the Mediterranean, photographers conveniently nearby to capture her surprise, her joy, the perfect angle of her hand against the sunset. The photos had run in society today within 48 hours. Her mother had cried. Her father had shaken Dominic's hand with the firm grip of a man sealing a merger. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? A merger. Vance Communications and Hale Industries, 2 empires braiding together through the neat ceremony of marriage. Alara took a sip. The champagne went down cold. There you are, she turned. Monica Chen approached with the careful precision of someone navigating a minefield in heels, her black dress cut to suggest rather than reveal, her smile bright and utterly meaningless. Hiding? Monica asked. Breathing, Alara said. Same thing at these events. Monica gestured toward the ballroom where a small orchestra played something classical and forgettable. Your mother's looking for you. Something about the photographer wanting shots before dinner. Of course she is. Monica tilted her head, studying her. You okay? The question landed softer than Alara expected. Monica was one of the few people in this world who asked things like that and might actually care about the answer. They'd gone to boarding school together, survived the same brutal social hierarchies, learned the same unspoken rules about who mattered and who didn't. I'm fine, Alara said. Just needed a minute. Dominic's holding court near the terrace. Looks very mayoral. He's not running for office. Yet. Monica's smile turned knowing. Give it 5 years? Alara laughed despite herself, a short exhale that felt like release. Probably less. That's a spirit. Come on, let's get this photo session over with so you can suffer through dinner like the rest of us. They moved through this crowd together, Alara nodding at familiar faces, accepting congratulations from people whose names she sometimes forgot, whose lives intersected with hers only at functions like this. Glittering, hollow, necessary. The Ashford estate sprawled across 11 acres in the Connecticut countryside. Old money dressed up as new taste, every room a carefully curated museum of wealth. The engagement party had been Dominic's mother's idea. Intimate, she'd said, just close family and friends, which translated to 200 guests, a full orchestra, and enough champagne to drown a small village. Alara's mother materialized near the grand staircase, her silver dress catching the light, her expression somewhere between pride and assessment. Catherine Vance had built her life on appearances. She'd married Alara's father when he was still climbing, turned Vance Communications from a regional firm into a national powerhouse through sheer force of networking and strategic dinner parties. She looked at Alara now the way a jeweler might examine a stone, checking for flaws. There you are, Catherine said, the same words Monica had used but weighted differently. Gregory wants photos in the garden before we lose the light. It's almost 9, Mom. We've already lost the light. He has equipment, professional lighting. It'll look natural. Catherine's hand found Alara's elbow, guiding her with the gentle insistence of someone who didn't take no for answers. Dominic's waiting. They moved through French doors onto a stone terrace, overlooking manicured gardens that probably cost more to maintain than most people's mortgages. Lights had been strung through the trees, casting everything in a soft amber glow that did, Alara had to admit, look natural enough. A photographer fussed with a tripod near a marble fountain. Dominic stood beside it, phone in hand, his profile sharp against the gathering dark. He looked up when they approached. Smiled. That easy, confident smile that had first caught her attention at a fundraiser 2 years ago. The smile of a man who'd never been told no, who'd never had to wonder if he was good enough because the answer had always been obvious. "There she is," Dominic said, pocketing his phone and reaching for her hand. His fingers were warm, familiar. He kissed her knuckles in a gesture that should have felt romantic but landed somewhere closer to performance. "You look beautiful." "Thank you." "Gregory wants us by the fountain. Something about symmetry." Dominic's hand settled on her lower back. Proprietary, guiding. They posed. The photographer clicked. Catherine watched from the terrace with the intensity of a director reviewing dailies. "Tilt your head slightly left, Ms. Vance. And Mr. Hale, if you could angle toward her just a touch. Perfect. Hold that." Click, click, click. Alara held her smile. She'd been doing this her whole life, knew how to make her face do what people needed it to do, how to project warmth and grace and whatever else the moment required. Dominic's hand stayed on her back, steady, possessive. He smelled like expensive cologne and ambition. "Beautiful," Gregory said. "Just a few more." They shifted positions. The fountain burbled behind them. Somewhere inside, the orchestra transitioned into something livelier, and Alara heard laughter spike and fall. Her feet hurt. The engagement ring felt heavy. "You seem quiet tonight," Dominic said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Just tired. We can leave early if you want, after dinner." "Your mother would kill us." "Probably." His thumb traced small circles on her back. "Worth it, though." She glanced at him. He was looking at the photographer, not at her, his jaw set in that particular way he had when he was thinking about something else entirely. She'd learned to read these small tells over the past year. Dominic Hale was always thinking about something else. The next deal, the next move, the next strategic advantage. She'd found it attractive once, that drive, that focus. Now it just felt like background noise. "Okay, I think we have what we need," Gregory said, lowering his camera. "Thank you both." Catherine appeared beside them like a stage manager between scenes. "Wonderful. Dinner's in 15 minutes. Alara, you should freshen up. Dominic, your father wants a word in the study." Dominic nodded, already pulling away, already moving toward the next thing. "I'll find you before we sit," he said to Alara, and then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd flowing back inside. Alara stood by the fountain for a moment, listening to the water, feeling the cool night air on her bare shoulders. Monica appeared at her elbow. "Survival tip," Monica said. "There's a powder room on the second floor, east wing. Nobody ever uses it. You can hide there for 10 minutes without anyone noticing. You're a lifesaver. I've been to enough of these things to know the escape routes." Alara slipped back inside and made her way upstairs. The second floor was quieter, dimly lit, lined with ancestral portraits of people whose names she'd never learned. She found the powder room Monica had mentioned, small, elegant, blessedly empty. She locked the door and leaned against it, closing her eyes. 10 minutes. She had 10 minutes before she needed to be downstairs, smiling, making conversation, playing the role of the perfect fiancé at the perfect engagement party. She could do this. She'd been doing it her whole life. She opened her eyes and looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back looked flawless, hair swept into a soft updo, makeup precise, dress a deep emerald that made her skin glow. Everything in its right place. Everything perfect. Except she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt anything real. The thought arrived unbidden, sharp enough to sting. She pushed it away, turned on the faucet, let the water run cold over her wrists. This was exhaustion talking, pre-wedding jitters, normal, expected, manageable. She just needed to get through tonight. She dried her hands, reapplied her lipstick, checked her reflection one more time. Better. Controlled. She unlocked the door and stepped back into the hallway. That's when she heard the voices. Low, urgent, coming from a room 3 doors down. The study, probably. Dominic and his father having that word Catherine had mentioned. Alara should have kept walking, should have gone downstairs, found her seat, let whatever conversation they were having stay private. But something in the tone stopped her. Something jagged. She moved closer, careful to keep her heels quiet on the hardwood. The study door was cracked open, just enough. Just enough to see. Just enough to shatter everything. Dominic wasn't with his father. He was with Natalie, Ilara's sister. They were pressed against the desk, his hands in her hair, her dress hiked up around her thighs, both of them breathing hard, moving together with the desperate urgency of people who knew they shouldn't be doing this, who were doing it anyway. Natalie made a sound, half gasp, half moan, and Dominic covered her mouth with his, swallowing it. Ilara's brain went white. Not static, not noise. Just white, blank, empty space where thought should have been. She watched them for 3 seconds, maybe 4, long enough to understand this wasn't a mistake, wasn't a drunken stumble. The way they moved together, they'd done this before, multiple times, enough to know each other's rhythms. She stepped back. The floor creaked. They froze. Dominic's head snapped toward the door. His eyes met Ilara's. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Natalie's face appeared over his shoulder, flushed, her lipstick smeared, her expression cycling through shock and fear and something that might have been defiance. Ilara turned and walked away. Behind her, she heard Dominic say her name. Once, then footsteps. He was following her, trying to catch up. She moved faster, her heels clicking sharp against the hardwood, her breath coming in short, controlled bursts, because if she let it loose, if she let any of this out, she would break right here in this hallway. And she couldn't do that. Not yet. Not where anyone could see. Ilara, wait. She didn't wait. She hit the stairs and descended quickly, gripping the banister, her vision tunneling. The ballroom opened up below, full of people, full of light and music and laughter. Her mother was near the entrance, talking to someone. Ilara veered left toward the terrace, needing air, needing space, needing anything that wasn't this. Dominic caught her arm just as she reached the French doors. "Let me explain," he said. She yanked her arm free, turning to face him. Up close, she could see the smear of Natalie's lipstick on his collar, the guilt written into every line of his face. He looked like a man caught, like a child who'd been told the rules and broken them anyway. "Explain what?" Her voice came out level, cold. She barely recognized it. "It's not—" He stopped, seemed to realize how that sentence ended, tried again. "It was a mistake." "How long?" "Ilara." "How long?" He looked away, swallowed. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year. She'd been wearing his ring for 3 of those months. They'd been planning a wedding, selecting venues, tasting cakes, arguing over guest lists, and the entire time he'd been sleeping with her sister. Natalie appeared in the doorway behind him, her dress straightened now, her expression somewhere between apologetic and resigned. She'd always been the prettier one, the charming one, the one who could walk into a room and make people turn. Ilara had spent her childhood in Natalie's shadow, had learned to compensate with grades and achievements and careful, strategic perfection. Natalie said softly. "Don't." Ilara held up a hand. "Don't say anything. I didn't mean for this to happen." "Neither did I." Looked at Dominic. But here we are. People were starting to notice. She could feel eyes turning, conversations pausing. In 30 seconds, this would become a scene. In 60, it would become a story people told at parties for the next decade. Ilara made a choice. She turned and walked back into the ballroom. Not running, not fleeing, walking with purpose, her spine straight, her expression neutral. People parted for her. She scanned the room, looking for something, someone, any anchor point in the chaos spilling through her chest. And then she saw him. Cale Draven stood alone near the far wall, a glass of whiskey in his hand, watching the crowd with the detached interest of someone observing an aquarium. He didn't belong here. Everyone knew it. The Draven family had been exiled from this world 5 years ago when Kael's father had been implicated in fraud, when their empire had collapsed overnight, when Kael had disappeared into whatever shadows people like him disappeared into. But he was here tonight, invited, somehow. Standing in a corner like a wolf that had wandered into a wedding. Ilara had met him once, years ago, before the fall. He'd been different then, sharper, brighter, part of the same gilded cage they all inhabited. Now he looked like someone who'd learned to live without gold. He was taller than she remembered, his dark hair longer, his jaw shadowed with stubble. He wore a suit that fit well but not perfectly, and he didn't seem to care. She walked straight toward him. The room watched. She could feel it. The attention, the speculation, the collective held breath of 200 people realizing something was about to happen. Kyle saw her coming. His expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened, tracking her movement with the careful precision of someone assessing a threat. She stopped in front of him. "Marry me," she said. The ballroom went silent. Kale tilted his head slightly, studying her like a puzzle that had just rearranged itself. He took a slow sip of his whiskey, set the glass down on a nearby table. When he spoke, his voice was low, rough around the edges, nothing like Dominic's polished tenor. "Is this a joke?" "No." "You're engaged to someone else?" "Not anymore." His eyes flicked past her, found Dominic standing frozen near the terrace doors, then returned to her face. Something shifted in his expression. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. He knew what she was doing. He knew exactly what this was. "You don't know me," he said. "I know enough." "I'm not him." A slight nod toward Dominic. "I won't play nice. I won't be what they want." "Good," Ilara said. "Neither will I." Silence stretched between them, thick and electric. Somewhere in the room, someone's phone chimed. The orchestra had stopped playing. Ilara's mother was moving toward them, her face a mask of controlled panic. Kyle looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who'd just been handed a weapon and was deciding whether to use it. "All right," he said. "Let's see where this goes." He held out his hand. Ilara took it. The room exploded. 3 hours later, Ilara sat in the back of a car she didn't recognize, watching the lights of the Ashford estate shrink in the rearview mirror. Kyle sat beside her, silent, his hands loose on his knees. The driver, someone Kyle had called, someone whose name Ilara didn't know, navigated through dark country roads with the ease of someone who'd done this before. The engagement party had imploded spectacularly. Her mother had tried to intervene, had pulled Ilara aside with whispered urgency, had used every tactic in her considerable arsenal to make this stop, to walk it back, to salvage the situation. Dominic had tried to explain again, his voice tight with something between anger and desperation. Natalie had cried. Real tears, probably, but Ilara was beyond caring about the authenticity of her sister's emotions. She'd stood in the middle of that ballroom, Kyle's hand in hers, and announced it clearly. The engagement to Dominic Hale was over. She and Cale Draven were leaving, together. The scandal would be nuclear. She knew that. By morning, her phone would be flooded with messages. Her social media accounts would be on fire. The story would be everywhere. Ilara Vance, the perfect daughter, the strategic match. The girl who'd done everything right, had walked away from it all and attached herself to the one man polite society had decided was poison. She should have felt scared, panicked, lost. Instead, she felt something close to weightless. "Where are we going?" she asked. Cale glanced at her. In the darkness of the car, his features were half shadow, impossible to read completely. "Safe house, outside the city. We need to talk." "About what?" "About what happens next." He paused. "About what you just did." "I know what I did." "Do you?" His voice wasn't unkind, just direct. "You just declared war on some very powerful people. Your family. His family. Everyone who was in that room. They won't forgive this." "I don't need forgiveness." "You think you don't?" "Wait until tomorrow." Ilara turned to look at him fully. "Why did you say yes?" Cale was quiet for a moment, his gaze on the window, watching the dark landscape blur past. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. "Because I've spent 5 years watching people like them pretend I don't exist," he said. "And you just walked up to me in front of all of them and asked me to marry you. That kind of chaos? I'm interested." "So this is entertainment for you?" "No." He looked at her then, direct, unflinching. "This is an opportunity for both of us." "To do what?" "Burn it all down." His smile returned, sharp and dark. "If you're actually willing." The car turned onto a smaller road, trees pressing close on either side. Alara's phone buzzed in her clutch. Texts, probably, dozens of them. She didn't check. Whatever was waiting for her in the digital world could wait a little longer. I found my fiancé sleeping with my sister tonight, she said. I think I'm past willing. Kale nodded slowly. Then we should talk about Dominic. What about him? He's not just a cheater, he's a criminal. Alara went still. What? Hale Industries, the whole empire. It's built on fraud, offshore accounts, forged documents, embezzlement on a scale that would make your head spin. My father stumbled onto it 5 years ago. That's why they destroyed him. The pieces started clicking together in Alara's mind. The sudden collapse of the Draven family, the speed of it, the totality. She'd been 19 when it happened, away at college, only half paying attention to the scandal. Her parents had spoken about it in hushed tones, had warned her to stay away from anyone associated with the Dravens. Your father knew, she said slowly. He was going to expose them. He had evidence. Then he died in a car accident 3 weeks later. Kale's voice was flat, empty of emotion, which somehow made it worse. Convenient timing. You think they killed him. I know they killed him. I just can't prove it. Yet. The car pulled through a gate that opened automatically, onto a gravel drive leading to a small house set back in the trees. It looked ordinary, middle class, forgettable, nothing like the estates they'd both come from. This is yours? Alara asked. Borrowed from someone who owes me a favor. We'll be safe here for a few days, long enough to figure out our next move. The driver stopped. Kale got out first, moved around to open Alara's door with an old-fashioned courtesy that felt strange, coming from someone who looked like he'd forgotten how to be polite. She stepped out into the cool night air, her dress utterly inappropriate for a safe house in the woods. Inside, the house was sparse but clean. Basic furniture, a functional kitchen, no personal touches. Kale moved through it with familiarity, checking windows, locking doors. Alara stood in the living room, still holding her clutch, still wearing her perfect engagement party dress, feeling the gap between who she'd been 3 hours ago and who she was now. There's a bedroom upstairs, Kale said. Take it. I'll sleep down here. We need to talk. We will. In the morning. He looked at her, and for the first time she saw something like concern in his expression. You've had a rough night. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be worse. She wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers, wanted to understand what she'd just walked into. But exhaustion hit her all at once. The adrenaline crash, the emotional whiplash, the weight of every decision she'd made in the past 3 hours. Okay, she said. She climbed the stairs to the bedroom, closed the door, and stood in the darkness for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. 63 messages, missed calls from her mother, her father, Monica, half a dozen other numbers. She scrolled through them without reading, just watching the names blur past. One text from Natalie. I'm so sorry. One from Dominic. We need to talk. This doesn't have to be the end. Alara deleted them both without responding. She set her phone on the nightstand, face down, and sat on the edge of the bed. The engagement ring caught the moonlight filtering through the window. She twisted it off her finger and held it in her palm. 3 carats of perfect clarity, of calculated romance, of a future that had never been real. She set it on the nightstand next to her phone. Tomorrow, she would deal with the fallout. Tomorrow, she would figure out what Kyle meant about Dominic being a criminal, about his father's death, about burning it all down. Tonight, she just needed to breathe. She lay back on the bed, still in her dress, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere downstairs, she heard Kyle moving around, the soft sounds of someone settling in for a long night. The stranger she'd just tied herself to. This dangerous, exiled man who looked at the world like it owed him a reckoning. What had she done? The question should have terrified her. Instead, as sleep pulled her under, Alara felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt free. Awake. The morning came hard and bright. Alara woke to sunlight slicing through unfamiliar windows, her body stiff, her dress wrinkled beyond salvation. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came back. The party, the study, Dominic and Natalie, the ballroom, Kyle's hand in hers. She sat up slowly, her head pounding. Her phone lit up with notifications, hundreds of them now. She ignored it, found a bathroom attached to the bedroom, and stood under a hot shower until some of the tension left her shoulders. When she came downstairs 20 minutes later, wrapped in a borrowed robe she'd found in the closet, Kyle was in the kitchen making coffee. He looked up when she entered, took in her appearance without comment, and poured a second cup. "Sleep okay?" he asked. "Define okay." He handed her the coffee. She took it gratefully, the warmth spreading through her hands. "Your phone's probably exploding," he said. "Already checked. You were right. I usually am." He leaned against the counter, his own coffee in hand. In daylight, she could see him more clearly. The hard angles of his face, the scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the way his eyes tracked movement with predatory focus. He'd changed out of his suit into jeans and a black t-shirt, and somehow the casual clothes made him look more dangerous, not less. "So," Alara said, "what now?" "Now we deal with reality." Kyle set his cup down, pulled out his phone, and turned it toward her. The screen showed a headline from Society Today. "Vance heiress ditches fiancé for exiled driven at own engagement party." Below it, a photo of Alara and Kyle leaving the Ashford estate, her hand in his. "That's just the first one," Kyle said. "There's about 50 more across different outlets. Some are calling you brave, most are calling you unstable. A few are suggesting I kidnapped you." Alara scrolled through the articles, each one worse than the last. The narrative was already forming. She'd had a breakdown. Kyle had manipulated her. The whole thing was a publicity stunt, or a cry for help, or proof that Alara Vance wasn't as perfect as everyone thought. "They're destroying you," Kyle said quietly. "They're trying." "Your sister gave an interview this morning. It went live 20 minutes ago." He pulled up another article. This one featured a photo of Natalie, tears streaming down her face, looking devastated. The headline read, "I tried to warn her. Natalie Vance speaks out about sister's disturbing behavior." Alara read the quotes in silence. Alara's been under so much pressure, planning the wedding, dealing with work stress. I think she just snapped. "I'm worried about her. Cale Draven is dangerous. Everyone knows what his family did. She wouldn't listen to me. I tried to talk to her before the party, tried to tell her she needed help, but she shut me out. And now this." The betrayal was surgical. Natalie had flipped the script entirely, positioned herself as the concerned sister, Alara as the unstable one, and neatly erased the fact that she'd been sleeping with Dominic for 6 months. "Impressive," Alara said, her voice hollow. "She's good." Cale took his phone back. "So is Dominic. He gave a statement too. Very measured, very concerned. Says he hopes you get the help you need." "Of course he did. They're controlling the narrative. By this afternoon, everyone will believe you're having a mental breakdown, and I'm taking advantage of it." Cale paused. "Unless we hit back." Alara looked up at him. "How?" "We give them a better story." His eyes were sharp, calculating. "We go public. Together. Tell them this wasn't a breakdown. It was a choice. We get married, for real, fast, before they can spin it any other way." "That's insane. So was proposing to me in the middle of your engagement party." Cale moved closer, his voice dropping. "They're going to bury you, Alara. Your family, his family. They have the money and the connections to make you disappear from public life entirely. The only way you survive this is if you commit fully. Make it real. Make it impossible for them to dismiss." "And what do you get out of this?" "Revenge," he said simply. 5 years of watching them live their perfect lives while they buried my father and destroyed everything we built. You're giving me a way back in, a platform, legitimacy." He smiled, cold and sharp. "And when we bring them down, we'll do it together." Alara's hands tightened around her coffee cup. Every instinct told her this was crazy, that she should call her parents, should try to salvage something, should retreat and regroup. But another part of her, the part that had spent her entire life being careful, being perfect, being what everyone else needed, was screaming that this was the only real choice she'd ever made. "How fast can we do it?" she asked. Cale's smile widened. "I can have everything arranged by tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" "City Hall, simple ceremony. We file the paperwork, make it legal, and then we hold a press conference." He pulled out his phone again, started typing. "I know a lawyer who can expedite the license. We'll need witnesses." "Wait," Alara held up a hand. "If we're doing this, we do it right. Not City Hall. Not simple." Kale looked at her, surprised. If we want them to take this seriously, she said, we give them a wedding they can't ignore. Something big enough that they can't call it a stunt. We make it real in every way that matters. Understanding dawned in Kael's expression. You want a spectacle. I want a statement. Alara set her coffee down, her mind already racing through logistics. We have resources. Money, connections. Both of us, even if yours are buried deeper. We pull together a wedding in 72 hours. Small guest list, but high profile. We stream it, make it impossible to look away. Your family will lose their minds. Good. Alara met his eyes. Let them. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Two people who'd just agreed to something insane, something that couldn't be taken back. Then Kael laughed. It was a rough sound, surprised and genuine. All right, he said. Let's burn it all down. Tid. The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and expensive leather. Alara sat in a chair that probably cost more than most people's cars, watching Kael pace in front of floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the financial district. 20 stories below, the city moved like blood through veins. Taxis, pedestrians, delivery trucks, all of it oblivious to the fact that two people up here were about to detonate their lives. Marshall Kincaid sat behind his desk, a man in his 60s with silver hair and the kind of calm that came from witnessing every possible human disaster. He'd worked with the Draven family before the fall, had apparently been one of the few who'd stayed loyal when the empire collapsed. Now he was reviewing paperwork with the focused intensity of someone who knew exactly how badly this could go wrong. Marriage license will be ready by tomorrow afternoon, Marshall said, not looking up. I've expedited it through a contact at City Hall. The ceremony itself, you're sure about the timeline? 72 hours, Kael said. That's not a wedding. That's a tactical strike. Good. Kael stopped pacing, turned to face the desk. That's exactly what it needs to be. Marshall finally looked up, his gaze moving between Kael and Alara with the careful assessment of someone calculating odds. You understand what you're walking into? The Hale family has connections that go deep. Judges, politicians, media moguls, they will come at you with everything. Let them, Alara said. Marshall's eyebrows lifted slightly. Miss Vance. It's just Alara. She leaned forward, her hands clasped in her lap. And I know what they'll do. I've watched them do it to other people my whole life. The difference is this time I'm choosing the fight. Choosing and winning are different things. Then help us win. Silence stretched across the office. Outside, a helicopter passed, its rotors thumping through the glass. Marshall studied Alara for a long moment, then shifted his attention back to Kael. You're sure about her? He asked. Are you serious right now? Alara stood up, her voice sharp. I'm sitting right here. I'm aware. Marshall didn't flinch. But Kael's the one I've known for 20 years. You walked into his life 48 hours ago with a proposal that sounds like a suicide pact. So yes, I'm asking him if he's sure. Kael crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. She showed up at that party, found her fiancé screwing her sister, and instead of crying or running, she walked across that ballroom and asked me to marry her in front of 200 people. I'm not sure about much, Marshall, but I'm sure she's not going to back down. That's not the same as being sure about marrying her. It's close enough. Alara looked between them, feeling the weight of decades-old loyalty, of history she wasn't part of. Marshall sighed, closed the folder in front of him, and stood. Fine, he said. I'll handle the legal side. Venue, catering, photography, you'll need to move fast. I can recommend people who work under tight deadlines. Already handled, Kael said. I made calls this morning. Of course you did. Marshall moved around his desk, extended a hand to Alara. Welcome to the war, Miss Vance. She shook his hand. His grip was firm, his eyes still skeptical. It's just Alara, she said again. We'll see if you're still saying that in 3 days. Bam. By the time they left Marshall's office, Alara's phone had accumulated another 100 notifications. She scrolled through them in the elevator, more articles, more speculation, more concerned messages from people who'd never actually cared about her well-being before. Her mother had called 17 times. Her father, surprisingly, only twice. You going to answer any of those? Kael asked. Not yet. They'll escalate. Good. Let them wonder. The elevator opened onto the lobby. Kael moved through it like someone accustomed to being watched. his posture relaxed but his eyes constantly scanning. Alara matched his pace, her heels clicking against marble. A few people glanced their way, did double takes, pulled out phones. By tonight there would be photos circulating. Alara Vance and Kyle Draven leaving a law office together, confirmation that whatever had happened at the engagement party wasn't a drunken mistake. Outside, the afternoon sun hit them like a physical thing. Kyle's car, a black Range Rover that looked like it had seen better days, was parked illegally at a meter. He unlocked it, held the passenger door open. "Where to?" Alara asked as she climbed in. "We need to talk strategy." Kyle shut her door, came around to the driver's side. "And we need to do it somewhere that isn't bugged. You think someone's listening? I think the Hale family has enough money to make sure they know exactly where you are and what you're doing at all times." He started the engine, pulled into traffic with the aggressive confidence of someone who'd learned to drive in a city that didn't forgive hesitation. "So yeah, I'm being paranoid, but paranoia keeps you alive." They drove for 20 minutes, leaving downtown behind, moving into neighborhoods that got progressively less polished. Alara watched the city change through her window, boutiques giving way to bodegas, renovated brownstones replaced by buildings that needed work. This wasn't her world. She'd driven through areas like this maybe twice in her life, always in cars with drivers, always insulated by wealth, and the assumption that she'd never actually have to stop. Kyle pulled into a parking lot behind a diner that looked like it had been there since the 70s. Vinyl booths visible through the windows, a neon sign that said "Open 24 hours," half the letters flickering. "Seriously?" Alara said. "Best coffee in the city, and nobody here gives a shit about society weddings." Inside, the diner smelled like coffee and bacon grease. A waitress with tired eyes and a name tag that said Ruth waved them toward a corner booth. Kyle slid in, Alara across from him. Ruth appeared with 2 mugs and a pot of coffee, filled both without asking, and disappeared. "You come here a lot?" Alara asked. "Used to. When I first came back to the city." Kale wrapped his hands around the mug, steam rising between them. "After my father died, after everything fell apart, I spent about a year trying to figure out what the hell to do with myself. This place was neutral. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody cared. But they know now. Some of them, doesn't matter. They still don't care." Alara took a sip of coffee. It was good. Better than good, actually. Strong and dark and real in a way the coffee at the Ashford estate had never been. "So what's the strategy?" Kale pulled out his phone, opened a note, and slid it across the table. It was a list, detailed and methodical. Wedding, 72 hours. License, Marshall handling, ready tomorrow. Venue, the Whitmore Estate. Confirmed, deposit paid. Officiant, Judge Patricia Reeves owes me a favor. Photographer David Chen, freelance, discreet. Catering, Maria's, small operation, excellent. Invitations, digital only, 24-hour notice. Guest list, 50 max, are people only. Press, controlled leak 6 hours before ceremony. Live stream, set up through independent platform. Security, private firm, background checks completed. Alara read through it twice. "You did all this in one morning? I've had 5 years to plan what I'd do if I ever got a shot at taking them down. This is just the opening move. The Whitmore Estate. That's where my parents got married." "Yeah." Kyle's voice was flat. "It's been sitting empty since the bankruptcy. I bought it last year through a shell company. Been waiting for the right moment to use it." Something twisted in Alara's chest. Not quite sympathy, but close. "Kyle, don't." He pulled the phone back. "I'm not looking for emotional support. I'm looking for a partner who can handle what comes next." "Which is what?" "Your family's going to try to stop this. Probably today. Definitely tomorrow." He leaned back against the booth, his eyes hard. "They'll come at you with everything. Guilt, money, threats, legal action if they think they can make it stick. Your mother will tell you you're making the biggest mistake of your life. Your father will try to cut you off financially. And Natalie can go to hell." "Agreed, but she's still dangerous. She's got the sympathetic narrative right now. Worried sister, concerned about your mental state. If she pushes that angle hard enough, if they can get a doctor to sign off on it, They could try for a psychiatric hold. Alara's hands tightened around her mug. That's insane. That's rich people protecting their interests. Cale's voice was clinical, detached. I've seen it happen. Hell, they tried it with me after my father died. Had a psychiatrist show up at my apartment with 2 orderlies ready to take me in for evaluation. I got out of it, but barely. How? Marshall filed emergency paperwork, threatened to go public with what my father had found about the Hales. They backed off. He paused. We won't have that leverage until we're ready to move. So until then, you need to be careful. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't let anyone from your family corner you. Alara's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, her mother calling again. She rejected it. I'm not going back, she said quietly. You sure about that? I've spent 26 years doing what they wanted. The right schools, the right internship, the right engagement to the right family. I was so focused on being perfect that I never stopped to ask if I actually wanted any of it. She looked up at Kael. 2 nights ago, I caught my fiancé with my sister, and I felt nothing. No heartbreak, no devastation, just this weird kind of relief, like I'd been waiting for an excuse to blow it all up, and finally got one. That's not nothing, Kael said. That's your brain telling you it was already over. Maybe. She turned her mug in slow circles on the table. Or maybe I'm just broken. You're not broken. You're just done pretending. The words landed with unexpected weight. Alara looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since this whole thing started. Kael Draven, the exiled heir, the dangerous man, the one everyone had warned her about. Up close, she could see the exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes, the tension he carried in his shoulders, the way his fingers drummed against the table in a rhythm that spoke to barely contained energy. Why are you really doing this? She asked. I told you, revenge. That's not all of it. Kael was quiet for a moment. Outside, a bus hissed past, brakes squealing. When he spoke, his voice was lower, rougher. My father was a good man, he said. Not perfect, but good. He built his company from nothing, employed 300 people, gave them health insurance and retirement plans, and actually gave a shit about their lives. When he found out what the Hales were doing, the fraud, the offshore accounts, all of it, he tried to do the right thing. He went to the authorities, he collected evidence. He was going to expose them. And they killed him. Car accident on a bridge, single vehicle. Police ruled it mechanical failure, brake line snapped. But I saw the car afterward before they towed it. The brake line had been cut clean, not frayed, not worn. Cut. Kael's jaw tightened. I tried to tell the police, they ignored me. I tried to hire a private investigator. He took my money and disappeared. I tried to go public, and suddenly I was the unstable son, the grieving kid who couldn't accept that accidents happen. So you disappeared. I learned to survive. Took 5 years, but I built a new foundation. Different name for the financial records, different circles, different game. And I waited. His eyes met hers. You asking me to marry you at that party? That wasn't chaos, Alara. That was opportunity. You handed me a way back into their world, and I'm going to use it to bury them. The brutality of it should have scared her. Instead, it felt like clarity. Okay, she said. Okay? Let's bury them. Kael's smile was sharp and cold. Good, then we need to move fast. Ceremony's in 3 days, but the real work starts now. They spent the next 6 hours planning. Kael pulled out a laptop, opened encrypted files that detailed everything he'd collected over the past 5 years. Bank records showing irregular transfers from Hale Industries to offshore accounts. Forged signatures on contracts that shouldn't exist. Email chains between Dominic's father and lawyers discussing how to manage whistleblowers. It was damning, meticulous, and entirely circumstantial, enough to raise questions, not enough to guarantee prosecution. We need something concrete, Kael said, scrolling through pages of financial data. Something that ties them directly to illegal activity, a smoking gun. Where do we find that? Dominic's office, probably, or his father's personal files. Kael closed the laptop, rubbed his eyes. The problem is access. I can't get anywhere near Hale Industries without raising alarms. And you? I could, Alara said. Kael looked at her sharply. What? Dominic's been texting me, apologizing, asking to meet. She pulled out her phone, showed him the messages. There were dozens, some angry, some pleading, all of them trying to reestablish contact. He wants to talk. Thinks he can fix this. That's bait. I know. But what if I take it? Absolutely not. Kael's voice was hard. That's exactly what they want. Get you alone, convince you to back down. Maybe record you saying something they can use against you later. So I don't go alone. Elara, I'm serious. I meet him somewhere public. Controlled environment. You're nearby, watching. I wear a wire. Get him talking about his family's business. If he's rattled enough, he might slip. Or he might figure out what you're doing, and we lose the advantage. We're running out of time. Elara leaned forward. The wedding's in 3 days. If we want to hit them with evidence during the press conference, we need to move now. This is the fastest way. Kael stared at her, clearly running calculations. It's too risky. Everything about this is risky. If something goes wrong, then you pull me out. But we have to try. The silence stretched between them, thick with tension. Finally, Kael exhaled hard through his nose. Fine, he said. But we do it my way. You meet him tomorrow, public location, daylight. I'm there the whole time, and at the first sign of trouble, we're gone. Deal. Kael pulled out his phone, started typing. I know a place, coffee shop in Midtown, lots of foot traffic, multiple exits. I'll set up surveillance the night before. You really think like this all the time? I've had to. He didn't look up from his phone. When you spend 5 years being hunted by people with unlimited resources, you learn to think 3 moves ahead. Or you die. The casual way he said it, like death was just another outcome to plan for, sent a chill through Elara's chest. This wasn't a game to Kael. It was survival. And she'd just volunteered to walk into the lion's den with him. Ruth appeared with food they hadn't ordered, burgers, fries, more coffee. She set it down without comment and vanished again. You didn't order this, Elara said. Ruth knows what I like, and she figures if you're sitting with me, you're probably having a bad day and need real food. Elara picked up a fry. It was hot, perfectly salted, and she realized she hadn't eaten anything substantial in almost 24 hours. She was starving. They ate in silence for a few minutes. The diner's ambient noise filling the gaps, conversations from other booths, the hiss of the grill, someone playing an old rock song on the jukebox. It felt surreal sitting here with Kael Draven, planning corporate espionage and a wedding in the same breath. Can I ask you something? Elara said. Depends on the question. When you said yes at the party, did you already know who I was? Kael finished chewing, swallowed. Yeah. How? I make it my business to know who's connected to the Hales. You've been engaged to Dominic for 3 months. Your family's company partners with Hale Industries on 6 projects. You were on my radar. So this wasn't random for you. Nothing's random. He met her eyes. But I didn't plan for you to walk up to me and propose. That was all you. Lucky coincidence? I don't believe in luck. Kael pushed his plate aside. I believe in preparation meeting opportunity. You gave me the opportunity. I was prepared. Elara's phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Monica. Where are you? Your mom is losing her mind. Call me. She typed back. I'm fine. Tell her I'll call when I'm ready. Monica's response came immediately. She's threatening to file a missing persons report. Elara showed the text to Kael. Of course she is, he said. Call Monica back. Put her on speaker. Elara dialed. Monica picked up on the first ring. Jesus Christ, Elle, where are you? I'm safe. That's not an answer. Your mother is literally talking to lawyers about having you declared mentally incompetent. Your father's calling in favors to track your credit cards. And Dominic, I don't care about Dominic. Well, you should, because he's on every news channel saying you're having a breakdown, and he's worried about your safety. Monica's voice was tight with stress. This is insane. What are you doing? Getting married. Silence on the other end, then, to Kael Draven. Yes. In 3 days. Yes. Elle, I love you, but this is the stupidest thing you've ever done. Probably, Elara admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. Why? To get back at Dominic? Because there are better ways. It's not about Dominic. Elara glanced at Kael, who was watching her with that unreadable expression. It's about me. For once in my life, I'm making a choice that's mine. Not my parents', not society's, not what's expected. Mine. Monica was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. You're sure? I'm sure. Then I'm coming to the wedding. Monica, yeah. No arguments. You need someone there who's actually on your side. Send me the details. A pause. And Elle? Be careful. Your mother's playing hardball, and she's got the whole family mobilized. This is going to get ugly. I know. Okay, call me if you need anything, and I mean anything. The line went dead. Alara set her phone down, suddenly exhausted. That went better than expected, Kyle said. She's a good friend. You're going to need good friends for what's coming. But They left the diner as the sun started setting, the city turning orange and gold in that brief window before night took over. Kyle drove back toward the safe house, navigating through traffic with the ease of someone who knew every shortcut, every back street. Alara watched the buildings slide past, her mind spinning through everything they'd discussed, everything they were about to do. Her phone rang. Her mother, again. This time she answered. Alara. Catherine Vance's voice was ice wrapped in silk. Where are you? I'm safe, Mom. That's not what I asked. It's the only answer you're getting right now. Don't do this. Catherine's control slipped, just slightly. Whatever you think you're doing with Kyle Draven, it's a mistake. He's using you. How do you know I'm not using him? Because you're not that smart. The words hit like a slap. Alara felt her jaw tighten, her hand gripping the phone harder. Listen to me, Catherine continued. You come home right now, we'll handle this quietly. Get you some help, talk to Dominic's family, smooth things over. You can still fix this. I don't want to fix it. Yes, you do. You're just emotional right now. You found Dominic in a compromising position and you overreacted. He was sleeping with Natalie, Mom, for 6 months. That's not a compromising position. That's betrayal. Silence. Then, Natalie made a mistake. And you're defending her. I'm defending this family, which is more than I can say for you right now. Catherine's voice sharpened. You're marrying a criminal, Alara. A man whose father was a fraud, whose family name is synonymous with disgrace. Do you have any idea what this is doing to our reputation? I don't care about our reputation. Then you're more lost than I thought. A pause. Your father and I have made a decision. If you go through with this wedding, you're cut off. No trust fund, no inheritance, no access to family resources. You'll be on your own. Alara's breath caught. She'd expected this, had known it was coming, but hearing it spoken out loud made it real in a way nothing else had. Okay, she said quietly. Okay? Catherine sounded genuinely surprised. I said okay, cut me off, do whatever you need to do. Alara looked at Kyle, who was watching her from the driver's seat, his expression unreadable. I'm getting married in 3 days. You're welcome to come, but I'm not expecting you to. Alara? Goodbye, Mom. She hung up. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, trying to steady herself, but the adrenaline was too much. She just walked away from everything, her family, her inheritance, the safety net she'd had her entire life. In 3 days, she'd be legally bound to a man she barely knew, with no money, no support, and enemies who wanted to destroy her. You okay? Kale asked. No? Her voice cracked. Not even a little bit. He didn't offer empty reassurance. Didn't tell her it would be fine. Instead, he just drove, giving her space to fall apart quietly in the passenger seat. By the time they reached the safe house, Alara had cried herself empty. Her makeup was ruined, her eyes swollen, her chest aching. She followed Kyle inside on autopilot, collapsed onto the couch, and stared at the ceiling. Kale disappeared into the kitchen, came back with 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed her one, sat in the chair across from her. My mother cut me off when I was 23, he said, week after my father died. Said I was too unstable, too angry. Said if I couldn't behave like an adult, I didn't deserve access to the family accounts. Alara took a sip of whiskey. It burned going down. What did you do? Survived. Got a job doing security work. Lived in a studio apartment that had mice and a radiator that only worked half the time. Ate ramen for 6 months straight. He swirled his glass. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. How? Because it taught me I didn't need them. I'd spent my whole life thinking the money, the name, the connections, that was who I was. Losing it forced me to figure out who I actually was underneath. He looked at her. You'll figure it out too. What if I don't? Then you'll fail. But at least you'll fail on your own terms. It wasn't comforting, exactly. But it was honest. And right now, honesty felt more valuable than comfort. They sat in silence, drinking whiskey, the safe house settling into evening quiet around them. Outside, the woods darkened, and somewhere in the distance, an owl called. Tomorrow, Kyle said eventually, you meet with Dominic, get what we need. After that, there's no going back. I know. I mean it, Alara. Once we start this, once we put everything in motion, it's scorched earth. No mercy, no second chances. Good. She finished her whiskey, set the glass down with a sharp click. I'm done with mercy. The next morning came too fast. Alara woke on the couch, disoriented, her neck stiff from sleeping at a bad angle. Sunlight streamed through windows she didn't recognize, and for a panicked second, she couldn't remember where she was. Then it came back. The safe house. Kyle. The wedding in 2 days. She sat up slowly, her head pounding. Her phone showed 53 new notifications, but she ignored them. Today was about Dominic. Everything else could wait. Kale was already awake, dressed in dark jeans and a black jacket, setting up equipment on the kitchen table. He looked up when she approached. Coffee's fresh, he said, nodding toward the pot. She poured herself a cup, watched him work. He had a small recording device, a wire that looked almost invisible, and what appeared to be a tracking chip. Is all of this necessary? She asked. The wires for audio. The trackers in case things go sideways and I lose visual. And this? He held up a small button that looked like it belonged on a coat. Is a panic button. You press it, I come running. You really think he'll try something? I think desperate people do stupid things. And Dominic's desperate. Hale tested the wire, checking levels on a laptop. He's losing you, losing control of the narrative, and probably getting pressure from his family to fix this. That makes him dangerous. Alara set her coffee down. Show me how it works. Kael walked her through it, where the wire would sit, how to activate the panic button, what to do if she felt threatened. He was thorough, methodical, treating this like a military operation, which, she supposed, it was. The coffee shop opens at 8, he said. You're meeting him at 9. I'll be there by 7:30 to set up. You come in at 8:45, sit at the window table, order something, make it look natural. When he arrives, let him do most of the talking. People slip up when they're trying to convince someone of something. What if he doesn't slip? Then we try something else. But we have to start somewhere. Alara nodded, her stomach tight with nerves. Okay, get dressed. We leave in an hour. She went upstairs, found clothes Kael had somehow acquired. Jeans, a simple blouse, a jacket. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed society princess. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. 2 days ago, she'd been Alara Vance, engaged to Dominic Hale, perfect daughter, perfect fiancée. Now she was what? A woman about to betray her ex-fiancé while wearing a wire, planning a wedding to a man she barely knew, cut off from her family and everything she'd ever had. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt awake. The coffee shop was exactly what Kael had described. Busy, anonymous, the kind of place where nobody paid attention to anyone else. Alara sat at the window table, a latte going cold in front of her, watching people hurry past on the street outside. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The wire felt obvious, even though Kael had assured her it was invisible. The panic button was in her jacket pocket, a small weight that reminded her she wasn't alone. Across the street, Kael sat in his Range Rover, watching through tinted windows. She couldn't see him, but she knew he was there. The knowledge steadied her. Dominic arrived at 9:02. He looked terrible, exhausted, unshaven, his suit rumpled in a way that would have been unthinkable 3 days ago. He spotted her immediately, crossed the coffee shop with quick strides, and slid into the seat across from her. Thank you for meeting me, he said. Alara said nothing. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that might have worked on her once. What happened with Natalie? It was wrong. I was wrong. But it's over. I ended it. When? Last night. I told her it was a mistake, that I want to fix things with you. How noble. Elara, please. He reached for her hand. She pulled it away. I love you. I made a mistake, but that doesn't change how I feel. You've been sleeping with my sister for 6 months, Dominic. That's not a mistake. That's a choice you made over and over again. I know, and I'm sorry, but we can get past this. His eyes were desperate, pleading. We're good together. The engagement, the wedding plans, we had a future. We had a business arrangement. He flinched. That's not fair, isn't it? Alara leaned forward. Our families wanted this marriage. Vance Communications and Hale Industries, one big happy merger. You proposed because it made strategic sense. I said yes because I'd been raised to say yes to things like that. And somewhere in there, we both forgot to ask if we actually loved each other. I do love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of me. The perfect wife, the good match, the woman who wouldn't ask too many questions about where you were or what you were doing. She paused, watching his face. Like where you were all those late nights at the office. Something flickered in his expression, wariness, maybe fear. I was working. On what? Projects, acquisitions, the usual. At midnight? On weekends? It's a demanding job, Ilara, you know that. She did know. She'd grown up watching her father work 80-hour weeks, had learned that success in their world required sacrifice. But she'd also learned to read people, to see when they were hiding something. Dominic was hiding something. Tell me about your father's business, she said. What? Hale Industries. The offshore accounts, the acquisitions that don't quite add up. Tell me about those. Dominic went very still. Where's this coming from? I've been hearing things, questions about how your family made their money, about deals that seem too good to be true. That's slander. People are jealous. Are they? Ilara watched him carefully. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like your family built their empire on fraud, forged documents, embezzled funds, offshore accounts designed to hide illegal activity. How much of it is true, Dominic? His face went pale, then flushed red. You don't know what you're talking about. Then explain it to me. I don't have to explain anything. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is what Draven's been telling you, isn't it? Poison in your ear, turning you against me, against your own family. He's using you, Ilara. Can't you see that? Maybe he is, she said calmly. Or maybe he's the first person who's been honest with me in years. Honest? His father was a criminal. Was he? Or was that just the story your family told to cover up what they'd done? Dominic's hands clenched into fists. For a second, Ilara thought he might actually hit her. Instead, he leaned down, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You think you're so smart hooking up with Draven. You think you're going to expose some big conspiracy. But you have no idea what you're dealing with. My family has resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, judges, people in positions of power who owe us favors. If you try to come at us, we will bury you. Is that a threat? It's a fact. He straightened, adjusted his jacket. Last chance, Ilara. Walk away from Draven. Come back. We can still fix this. No, we can't. Then you're making the biggest mistake of your life. He turned and walked out. Ilara sat very still, her heart pounding, her hands shaking under the table. She'd gotten what they needed. Dominic had basically confirmed everything, had threatened her on recording. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. She stood, left money on the table, and walked outside. The Range Rover was already pulling up to the curb. She climbed in. Cale handed her a bottle of water. You did good. Did you get it? He tapped his laptop. Every word. He basically confessed to having the resources to bury anyone who challenges them. That's conspiracy, obstruction of justice at minimum. Is it enough? It's a start. He pulled into traffic. But we need more. We need the actual evidence, the bank records, the forged documents. This just proves they're willing to fight dirty. Ilara drank the water, trying to steady herself. He's scared. Good. Scared people make mistakes. They drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Ilara's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Miss Vance? A woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. Yes? This is Detective Sarah Moss with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. We need to speak with you about allegations concerning Hale Industries. Can you come in this afternoon? Elara's blood went cold. She looked at Kael, who'd gone very still. Allegations? She managed. We've received information suggesting you may be involved in an attempt to extort or blackmail members of the Hale family. We'd like to hear your side of the story. I don't know what you're talking about. Then you won't mind answering a few questions. We can do this voluntarily, or we can make it official. Your choice. The line went dead. Elara stared at her phone. They're accusing me of extortion. Dominic must have called his lawyers the second he left the coffee shop. Kael's jaw was tight. They're flipping the script, making you the aggressor. What do I do? Nothing. You don't talk to them without Marshall present. We call him right now. Get ahead of this. But even as he said it, Elara could see the calculations running behind his eyes. The Hales were moving faster than they'd anticipated. They were trying to neutralize the threat before it became dangerous, and they had no idea how dangerous it was about to get. Call Marshall, she said, and then we accelerate everything. The wedding, the press conference, all of it. We don't have 3 days anymore. Elara, They're coming for us, Kael. You said it yourself, scorched earth. So let's burn it down before they can. Kael looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, he said. Let's go to war. Marshall's office felt smaller the second time around. Maybe it was the 3 of them crammed in there instead of 2. Or maybe it was the weight of what they were about to do pressing down on the walls. Marshall sat behind his desk, reading through the transcript of Elara's conversation with Dominic, his expression growing darker with each line. This is bad, he said finally. We know, Kael said. No, I don't think you do. Marshall set the papers down, laced his fingers together. The DA's office doesn't move this fast unless someone with serious juice is pushing them. The Hales must have called in every favor they're owed to get a detective on the phone within an hour of your meeting. So what do we do? Elara asked. You cooperate, with me present. We go in, you answer their questions honestly, and we show them that you're the victim here, not the aggressor. Marshall pulled out his phone, started typing. I can get us an appointment for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow's the wedding, Kael said. I'm aware, which is why we need to handle this today. Marshall looked up. If we don't address this now, if we let them control the narrative, the DA could issue a warrant. And if you're arrested on your wedding day, this whole thing collapses. Elara's stomach twisted. They're trying to stop the wedding. They're trying to stop everything. The wedding, the press conference, whatever you two are planning. Marshall's eyes moved between them. Which brings me to my next question. What exactly are you planning? Kael pulled out his laptop, opened the files he'd shown Elara yesterday. We're going to expose them. Everything. The fraud, the offshore accounts, the forged documents. We go public during the press conference, hand everything over to federal authorities, and let the dominoes fall. Marshall studied the screen, his expression unreadable. You have copies of these files? Multiple. Encrypted, stored in different locations. And you're sure they're authentic? I've spent 5 years verifying every piece of information in here. It's solid. Solid enough to withstand a legal challenge from a family with unlimited resources and the best lawyers money can buy? Kael's jaw tightened. It has to be. That's not an answer. Marshall closed the laptop. Listen to me, both of you. What you're proposing is nuclear. If you pull this trigger, there's no taking it back. The Hales will come at you with everything. Defamation suits, countercharges. They'll dig into every aspect of your lives looking for ammunition. And if there's even one mistake in these files, one piece of evidence that doesn't hold up, they'll use it to destroy your credibility completely. So what are you saying? Elara asked. We just let them get away with it? I'm saying you need to be absolutely certain before you burn down the world. Marshall leaned back in his chair. And I'm saying that the DA's office calling you in might not be entirely bad news. How is that not bad news? Because it means they're investigating. Someone tipped them off about Hale Industries, and they're following up. If we play this right, we can use that to our advantage. He pulled out a legal pad, started writing. You go in, you tell them everything you know. You hand over evidence. You become a witness instead of a suspect. Kael shook his head. That takes control out of our hands. It also puts the weight of the federal government behind you. The DA's office has subpoena power, forensic accountants, resources you don't have. Marshall looked at him. I know you want revenge, Kyle. I understand that. But smart revenge means using every tool available. Silence filled the office. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, the constant background noise of the city. Alara looked at Kyle, trying to read his expression. His hands were clenched on the armrests of his chair, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say. Fine, he said finally. We talked to the DA, but we don't hand over everything, not yet. We give them enough to get them interested, hold back the rest until we know whose side they're really on. Marshall nodded slowly. I can work with that. I'll call Detective Moss, set up a meeting for this afternoon. You two go back to the safe house, prep your statements, and for God's sake, don't talk to anyone. No press, no family, nobody. When do we tell them about the wedding? Alara asked. After we know you're not getting arrested. Marshall stood, signaling the meeting was over. One crisis at a time. Mad. The DA's office was in a building that looked like it had been designed to intimidate, all concrete and steel, narrow windows, security checkpoints at every entrance. Alara went through the metal detector with Marshall beside her, Kyle right behind. They were escorted to the 4th floor, down a hallway lined with closed doors, into a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and decades of bad news. Detective Sarah Moss was waiting for them. She was younger than Alara expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and the kind of posture that came from years of dealing with people who lied for a living. Another woman sat beside her, introduced as ADA Jennifer Park, Assistant District Attorney. They both had notepads, recording devices, and expressions that gave away exactly nothing. Thank you for coming in, Moss said as they sat down. I know this is inconvenient. My client is here voluntarily, Marshall said before anyone else could speak. She's happy to answer questions, but we'd like to understand the nature of this investigation first. Moss exchanged a glance with Park. We've received allegations that Miss Vance has been working with Kyle Draven to extort members of the Hale family. Specifically, threats to release damaging information unless certain conditions are met. That's absurd, Alara said. Is it? Park opened a folder, pulled out several pages. We have a recording from this morning where you directly confronted Dominic Hale about his family's business practices. You mentioned offshore accounts, fraud, forged documents. That sounds like someone who has information and is using it as leverage. I was asking questions, very specific questions, almost like someone had fed you that information. Park's eyes moved to Kyle. Someone who might have a grudge against the Hale family. Kyle leaned forward. My father died investigating Hale Industries. I have every right to ask questions about what happened to him. Your father died in a car accident. My father was murdered. Kyle's voice was flat, controlled, and the Hale family covered it up. That's a serious accusation, Moss said. Do you have evidence? I have 5 years of research, financial records, email chains, testimony from people who worked with both my father and the Hales. It's all documented. Then why haven't you brought it to law enforcement before now? Because law enforcement ignored me the first time, and the second, and the third. Kyle's hands were flat on the table, his knuckles white. I learned pretty quickly that the Hales have friends in every institution that's supposed to keep them accountable. And yet here you are, Park said, talking to us. Because my client suggested it, Marshall interjected smoothly. Miss Vance believes in working within the system. She came to Mr. Draven with concerns about her former fiancé's family. They compared notes, and they decided the right thing to do was bring this information to the proper authorities. Is that true, Miss Vance? Moss asked. Alara felt 3 sets of eyes on her, Moss, Park, and Kyle, all waiting to see which way she'd jump. She thought about the recording device in her jacket pocket, about Dominic's threats, about her mother's voice cutting through the phone line telling her she was cut off, alone, stupid. Yes, she said. That's true. Park didn't look convinced. You're marrying Mr. Draven tomorrow. That's correct? Seems like a sudden decision. It was. Some might say suspiciously sudden, almost like it was designed to create a media spectacle, draw attention away from other activities. Some might say I caught my fiancé sleeping with my sister and made an impulsive choice, Alara shot back. But that wouldn't fit your narrative, would it? Park's expression didn't change. I'm just trying to understand the timeline. You discover your fiancé's infidelity, you immediately attach yourself to a man with a known vendetta against the Hale family, and within 48 hours you're gathering evidence and making accusations of criminal activity. That's a lot of coincidence. Or it's a woman who finally woke up to the kind of people she was surrounded by. Alara leaned forward. You want to know what I know about Hale Industries? I'll tell you. But first you need to tell me, are you actually investigating them, or are you just here because they made a phone call? Silence stretched across the table. Moss and Park looked at each other, some wordless communication passing between them. Finally, Moss spoke. We've had Hale Industries on our radar for 18 months, she said quietly. Financial irregularities, offshore accounts that don't match up with reported income, contracts that seem designed to obscure the flow of money. But every time we get close, we hit a wall. Records disappear, witnesses recant, our warrants get challenged by lawyers who cost more per hour than I make in a month. So yes, Park added, we are actually investigating, but we need evidence that will hold up in court. Not speculation, not hunches, hard evidence. Alara looked at Kyle. He gave a small nod. Then let's talk, she said. Ooch. They spent the next 3 hours laying it all out. Kyle walked them through his father's investigation, the evidence he'd collected before his death, the suspicious circumstances of the car accident. Alara described her relationship with Dominic, the business connections between their families, the things she'd overheard at dinner parties and charity events that hadn't made sense at the time, but looked different now in context. Marshall pulled out copies of some of Kyle's files. Not everything, just enough to show the scope of what they had. Bank statements showing irregular transfers, email chains discussing creative accounting, contracts with signatures that forensic analysis suggested were forged. Moss took notes. Park asked pointed questions, poking at weak spots, testing the strength of the evidence. By the end of it, both women looked tired and a little bit angry. This is substantial, Moss said finally. If even half of this is accurate, we're looking at fraud, money laundering, possibly racketeering. It's accurate, Kyle said. You understand we'll need to verify everything independently. We can't just take your word for it. I wouldn't expect you to. Park closed her folder. Here's what happens next. We open a formal investigation. That means subpoenas, forensic accountants going through every transaction, interviews with everyone connected to Hale Industries. It also means you two need to stay available. No leaving the state, no destroying evidence, full cooperation. What about the extortion allegations? Marshall asked. We're dropping them, Moss said. It's clear you were gathering evidence, not attempting blackmail. But she looked at Alara. You need to be careful. If the Hales get wind that you're cooperating with us, they will retaliate, and they have the resources to make your life very difficult. They're already doing that, Alara said. Then they'll escalate. I've seen it before with families like this. They'll dig into your finances, your past, every relationship you've ever had. They'll leak information to the press, file lawsuits, maybe even try to have you committed if they think they can make it stick. They already threatened that, Kyle said. Alara's mother mentioned psychiatric evaluation. Moss's expression darkened. Of course she did. That's the playbook. Discredit the witness, make them look unstable. You need to document everything, every threat, every contact, every attempt to intimidate you. It all becomes evidence. And the wedding? Alara asked. Park and Moss exchanged another look. That's your business, Park said. But speaking as someone who's watched a lot of people go through investigations like this, the press attention might not be your friend right now. The Hales will use it against you. Say you're doing this for publicity, for attention. Let them say whatever they want, Alara said. We're getting married tomorrow. Moss nodded slowly. Then be smart about it. Don't make statements you can't take back. Don't give them ammunition. They wrapped up shortly after, with promises to stay in touch, to provide additional evidence as needed, to keep Marshall in the loop. Walking out of the DA's office, Alara felt like she'd been holding her breath for 3 hours and could finally exhale. That went better than expected, Marshall said as they reached the street. They believed us, Alara said. They believe you have something worth investigating. That's not the same thing. Marshall pulled out his phone, checking messages. But it's a start. The fact that they're already looking at Hale Industries means they've been building a case. You just gave them the pieces they needed to move forward. Kyle was quiet, his expression unreadable. Alara touched his arm. You okay? 5 years, he said. 5 years of being told I was crazy, paranoid, that my father's death was an accident, and in 3 hours, 2 investigators believed me. Because you had evidence. Because you were there. He looked at her. They wouldn't have listened to me alone. But you, perfect daughter, society princess, you gave them credibility. Made it real. There was something in his voice Alara couldn't quite read. Not resentment, but maybe recognition of how the game was played. How her name and background opened doors his couldn't anymore. Marshall's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression shifting from neutral to concerned to something close to alarm. When? He asked. How bad? He hung up, turned to them. We need to go, he said. Now. What happened? Kyle asked. That was my office. Someone just leaked your wedding plans to every major media outlet in the city. Photos of the venue, guest list, everything. Alara's stomach dropped. How? I don't know. But it gets worse. Marshall started walking toward his car, forcing them to keep up. The Whitmore estate is surrounded by reporters, and someone called in a bomb threat. The Whitmore estate looked like a war zone. Police cars blocked the main entrance, lights flashing. Bomb squad vehicles sat in the circular driveway. News vans lined the street, cameras pointed at the building, reporters doing stand-ups against the backdrop of chaos. Cale pulled his Range Rover to a stop half a block away, staring at the scene with an expression Alara couldn't read. 5 years, he said quietly. I spent 5 years planning how to use this place, and someone just destroyed it in one phone call. The bomb threat's probably fake, Marshall said from the back seat. They're trying to shut you down, create enough disruption that the wedding can't happen. It's working. Kyle's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Even if they clear the building, even if everything's fine, no one's going to want to come to a wedding that just had a bomb threat called in on it. Alara's phone started ringing. Monica. She answered. Are you watching this? Monica asked without preamble. We're here. Jesus, Elle, it's on every channel. CNN's calling it the wedding of the year under siege. Fox is speculating about domestic terrorism. And your mother just went on record saying she's deeply concerned about Ilara's safety and judgment. Of course she did. Where are you actually getting married? Because it can't be there. Ilara looked at Kyle. I don't know yet. Figure it out fast. The vultures are circling. Monica paused. And Elle? Be careful. Someone's playing for keeps here. The line went dead. Alara watched the news crews setting up equipment, saw a reporter she recognized from Society Today gesturing animatedly at the estate while someone filmed. This wasn't just about stopping the wedding anymore. This was about destroying them publicly, making them look dangerous, unstable, criminal. We need a new plan, Marshall said. We need a new venue, Kyle corrected. Everything else stays the same. Guest list, officiant, photographer. We just changed the location. To where? Every place in the city knows who you are now. The second you try to book somewhere, it'll leak again. Then we don't book. Kyle pulled out his phone, started scrolling through contacts. We go somewhere they can't touch. He dialed. Someone answered on the third ring. David, it's Kyle Draven. I need a favor. Big one. He listened. Tomorrow, small ceremony, maybe 50 people, somewhere off the grid. More listening. Yeah, I know it's insane. That's why I'm calling you. A pause, then a slight smile. You're serious? That'll work. Send me the address. He hung up, looked at Alara and Marshall. We're getting married on a boat, he said. Miles. The boat was a 70-foot yacht called the Meridian, owned by one of Kyle's old contacts from his security days. It was docked in a private marina an hour north of the city, accessible only through a gated community that took privacy seriously. The owner, David Chen, the same photographer Kyle had already hired, had offered it immediately when he heard what happened. No press, no bomb threats, no way for anyone to crash it unless they want to swim, David said as he showed them around that evening. The yacht was beautiful, all teak and brass and clean lines, with a main deck that could easily accommodate 50 people and a smaller upper deck with panoramic views. It's perfect, Alara said. It's a backup plan, Kael corrected. Perfect would have been the estate. She heard the bitterness in his voice, understood it. The Whitmore estate wasn't just a venue for him. It was a symbol, reclaiming something that had been taken from his family, using it to launch his counterattack. Now it was a crime scene, crawling with police and reporters, unusable. The Hales had taken that from him too. We make new plans, she said quietly. Kyle looked at her, his expression softening slightly. You're not having second thoughts? Are you? I asked first. No second thoughts. She moved closer to him, lowered her voice so David and Marshall wouldn't hear. But I need to know something. When this is over, when we've exposed them and the dust settles, what happens to us? What do you mean? I mean this marriage. Is it real or is it just a tool? Because I need to know what I'm signing up for. Cale was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching hers. I don't know, he said finally. I know what it started as. Strategy, revenge, a way to get at people who destroyed my life. But you, he stopped, seemed to struggle with the words. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more fragile. Someone who'd break when things got hard. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. You're not breaking. Not yet, she said. Give it time. His hand found hers, squeezed once. It was the first time he'd touched her with something that felt like genuine connection instead of performance, and it caught her off guard. Tomorrow, he said. We get married. We go through with the press conference. We hand over everything to the DA and let the system do its job. And after that, he shrugged. We figure it out as we go. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't even particularly reassuring, but it was honest. And right now, honesty was all she had. Cool. The night before her wedding, Alara couldn't sleep. She lay in the small cabin David had given her on the yacht, listening to water lap against the hull, watching moonlight move across the ceiling. Tomorrow she would legally bind herself to Cale Draven. Tomorrow they would face down the full weight of two families determined to destroy them. Tomorrow everything would change, for better or worse. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Last chance to walk away. She stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it. There would be more. Threats, warnings, attempts to scare her off. She was done responding to them. Another buzz, this time from Monica. I'm coming tomorrow. Wouldn't miss it. Stay strong. That one she kept. She must have fallen asleep eventually because she woke to sunlight streaming through the small window and the smell of coffee drifting from somewhere above. She dressed in jeans and a sweater, went up to the main deck. Kael was already there, sitting at the table with his laptop open, working through something. He looked up when she approached. Coffee's fresh, he said. You sleep at all? Some. He closed the laptop. Marshall's on his way. He's bringing the marriage license. Judge Reeves will be here by noon. Guests? Monica confirmed. A few others from my side. Maybe 30 people total. He paused. Your parents? Haven't heard from them. I'm sorry, Side. Don't be. I made my choice. They sat in silence for a few minutes, drinking coffee, watching the marina wake up around them. Other boats bobbed gently in their slips. Seagulls called overhead. It felt surreal. Getting married on a yacht because their original venue had been bombed with threats, surrounded by security because powerful families wanted to destroy them, about to expose corruption that could send people to prison. You ever think about what normal people do on their wedding day? Alara asked. Get nervous about vows, argue about seating charts, worry if the flowers match. Kyle smiled slightly. I'm guessing that's not our experience. Not even close. Regret that? She thought about it. Really thought about it. 48 hours ago, she'd been on track for a normal wedding. The kind with 300 guests and a live orchestra, and her mother crying in the front row. The kind that got written up in magazines and envied by people who measured success in carats and square footage. No, she said. I don't regret it. Good. Kyle stood, offered his hand. Come on, we've got a few hours before the circus starts. Let's enjoy the quiet while we can. Oh, wow. The wedding happened at 2 in the afternoon. The sky was cloudless, the water calm, the temperature perfect, like even nature had decided to give them this one thing. 32 people gathered on the main deck of the Meridian, most of them Kael's contacts and a handful of Alara's friends, who decided to show up despite the chaos. Monica stood beside Alara as her maid of honor, wearing a simple blue dress and an expression of fierce loyalty. On Kael's side was a man named Marcus, former military, scarred, and quiet, one of the few people from the old world who'd stuck with Kael through the fall. Judge Patricia Reeves stood between them, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes, who'd apparently known Kael's father and believed every word Kael had said about his murder. She'd agreed to officiate as a favor, and because, as she'd put it, someone needs to stand up to those bastards. Alara wore a dress she'd bought that morning, simple, cream-colored, nothing like the elaborate gown she'd been fitted for 3 weeks ago. Kael wore a dark suit, no tie, looking like someone headed to a business meeting that might end in violence. David Chen circulated with a camera, capturing moments with quiet efficiency. "We ready?" Judge Reeves asked. Alara looked at Kael. He looked back. Neither of them said anything, but something passed between them, acknowledgement, maybe, of how insane this was and how they were doing it anyway. "Yeah," Kael said. "We're ready." The ceremony was short, stripped of anything unnecessary. Judge Reeves spoke about commitment and choice, about how marriage was a partnership forged in intention. She didn't mention love, she didn't need to. Everyone there understood what this was. "Do you, Kael Draven, take Alara Vance to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." "And do you, Alara Vance, take Kael Draven to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Alara's throat was tight. This was it, the point of no return. After this, everything that came next was real, legal, binding. "I do," she said. "Then, by the power vested in me by the state of New York, I pronounce you husband and wife." Judge Reeves smiled, the first real warmth Alara had seen from her. "You may kiss the bride." Kael stepped closer. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. He kissed her softly, briefly. A seal on a contract more than a declaration of passion. When he pulled back, his eyes held hers for a moment. "No going back now," he murmured. "Good," she whispered back. The small crowd applauded. Monica hugged her. Marcus shook Kael's hand. For maybe 10 minutes, it felt like a real wedding. Celebration, joy, the kind of moment that belonged in photo albums and family stories. Then Marshall appeared, his phone in his hand, his expression grim. "We have a problem," he said. Okay. The problem was waiting for them in the yacht's main cabin, displayed on Marshall's laptop screen. It was a video, uploaded to YouTube 3 hours ago, already approaching 1 million views. The title read, "Alara Vance, the truth they don't want you to know." Alara felt ice spread through her chest as Marshall hit play. The video opened with Natalie, her sister, her betrayer, sitting in what looked like a professional studio setup. She wore minimal makeup, a simple sweater, her eyes red like she'd been crying. She looked directly into the camera with the practiced sincerity of someone who'd rehearsed every word. "My name is Natalie Vance," she began, "and I need to tell you the truth about my sister." Alara's hands clenched. Beside her, Kael had gone very still. "For the past week, you've seen headlines about Alara leaving her fiancé, marrying a man she barely knows, making accusations against one of the most respected families in our city. And I've stayed quiet because I hoped, I prayed, she would come to her senses. But after today, after she went through with this wedding, I can't stay silent anymore." Natalie paused, took a shaky breath. "My sister is not well. She's been struggling with mental health issues for years. Depression, anxiety, paranoid delusions. Our family has tried to help her. We've offered therapy, medication, support, but she's refused all of it. And now she's fallen under the influence of Kael Draven, a man who has his own vendetta, his own agenda." "This is bullshit," Monica said from behind them. On screen, Natalie continued, "The accusations she's making against the Hale family aren't real. They're fabrications fed to her by Kael, designed to destroy reputations and create chaos. And I have proof." The video cut to documents, medical records with Alara's name on them, prescriptions for antidepressants, notes from therapists. It took Alara 3 seconds to realize what she was looking at. "Those are fake," she said, her voice hollow. "Keep watching," Marshall said grimly. The video cut back to Natalie. "I'm releasing these records because I love my sister and I'm terrified for her safety. Cale Draven is dangerous. His own father died under suspicious circumstances, and there are people who believe Kyle was involved. Now he's isolated Alara, cut her off from her family, convinced her that everyone who loves her is the enemy." The final shot was of Natalie looking directly into the camera, tears streaming down her face. "Elle, if you're watching this, please, come home. We can get you help. You don't have to do this. You don't have to destroy yourself to hurt the people you think have hurt you." The video ended. The cabin was silent except for the gentle rocking of the boat. Alara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The medical records forged. They had to be forged, but they looked real. Her therapist's signature, her doctor's notes, all of it professional and official and damning. Within hours, every news outlet would have this. By tomorrow, everyone would believe she was mentally ill, that Kyle had manipulated her, that nothing they'd said about the Hales was true. "They're destroying me," she said quietly. "They're trying to," Kyle corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" She looked at him, feeling something break inside her chest. "Medical records, Kyle. Real or fake, it doesn't matter. People will believe them. The DA will question everything we told them. Our credibility is gone. So we fight back." "With what? More accusations they'll say are paranoid delusions?" Her voice rose, anger and despair mixing into something caustic. "They've been planning this. While we were focused on the wedding, on gathering evidence, they were building a narrative where I'm the unstable one and you're the predator. We played right into it." Marshall's phone rang. He answered, listened for maybe 10 seconds, then hung up. "That was Detective Moss," he said. "She wants to see us. Tomorrow morning." She didn't say why, but her tone wasn't friendly. "They're backing off," Kyle said. "The investigation. They're going to drop it because now our credibility is shot." "We don't know that yet, don't we?" Kale stood, started pacing the small cabin like a caged animal. "This is exactly what happened to my father. He brought evidence, made accusations, and they buried him under questions about his mental state, his motives, his reliability as a witness. And then he died, and the whole thing went away." Alara watched him pace, saw the rage and fear and 5 years of grief pouring off him in waves. This was his nightmare. History repeating, losing everything again, watching the people who killed his father walk away clean. "We need to respond," Monica said. "Put out our own statement, fight back against Natalie's video." "And say what?" Alara asked. "That the medical records are fake? They look real, that I'm perfectly sane, after proposing to a stranger at my engagement party, that Kyle's not dangerous, he's threatened multiple people in the past week. So what are you saying, we just give up? I'm saying I don't know how to win this." The admission hung in the air. Outside, the sun was starting to set, painting the water gold and red. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like watching the world burn. Kyle stopped pacing, turned to face her. "There's one play left," he said. "What?" "The evidence we held back. The pieces we didn't give to the DA because we wanted to control when they came out." He pulled out his phone, opened an encrypted folder. "We release it. All of it. Tonight. Bypass the legal system, go straight to the press, make it impossible to ignore." "That's insane," Marshall said. "You release that without proper legal protection. The Hales will sue you into oblivion. They'll claim defamation, invasion of privacy, theft of proprietary information. Let them sue." Cale's voice was hard. "At least it'll be a fight, instead of watching them control the narrative while we play by rules they don't follow. Kyle, my father tried to do this the right way. He followed procedures, went through proper channels, trusted the system. And they killed him for it." He looked at each of them. "I'm done trusting the system. I'm done playing defense. They want to make this a war? Fine. Let's give them a war." Alara felt something shift in her chest, fear maybe, or recognition. This was the cliff edge, the moment where careful strategy gave way to chaos. If they did this, if they released everything without legal protection, without the DA's backing, they would be completely exposed. Vulnerable. The Hales would come at them with everything, and there would be no safety net. But there would also be no more waiting, no more careful moves, no more watching the enemy control the board. Do it, she said. Marshall made a sound like he'd been punched. Ilara, do it, she repeated, looking at Kael. Release everything. Let them try to spin their way out of bank records and forged documents and 5 years of fraud. Let them sue us. At least we'll go down swinging. Kael smiled, sharp and dangerous. You're sure? I'm sure. He turned to his laptop, started pulling up files. Marshall stood abruptly. I can't be part of this, he said. You're my clients and I care about you both, but I can't ethically assist in releasing information this way. I'll continue to represent you, but this decision is yours. Understood, Kael said without looking up. Marshall left the cabin. Monica moved closer to Ilara. You know this is crazy, right? She said quietly. Yeah, but you're doing it anyway. Yeah, Monica squeezed her shoulder. Then I'm with you, whatever happens. Kael worked quickly, uploading files to multiple platforms. WikiLeaks, major news outlets, anonymous forums that specialized in exposing corporate fraud. Everything they had. Bank records showing millions moving through offshore accounts, emails discussing how to hide transactions, contracts with forged signatures, testimony from people who'd worked with the Hales and witnessed illegal activity. 5 years of evidence released in a single coordinated dump. When it was done, Kael closed his laptop and looked at Ilara. No taking it back now, he said. Good, she said, even though her hands were shaking. They sat in silence for maybe 10 minutes, watching the sun sink below the horizon, waiting for the world to catch fire. Ilara's phone started ringing first, then Kael's, then Monica's. The news was breaking, major outlets picking up the story, analyzing the documents, calling for comment. Within an hour, it would be everywhere. By morning, the Hale Empire would be under siege, but so would they. Whatever happens next, Kael said quietly, we're in it together. Ilara looked at her husband, this dangerous, damaged man she'd bound herself to in a moment of fury and desperation. This person who'd just helped her burn down every bridge she had left. Together, she agreed. Outside in the gathering dark, car headlights appeared at the marina entrance. Then more. Then the flash of cameras. The press had found them, and this was just the beginning. The cameras came first, then the questions, shouted through the marina gate by reporters who'd somehow tracked them down within 20 minutes of the document dump going live. Security guards employed by the marina tried to hold them back, but there were too many. CNN, Fox, NBC, independent journalists with phones held high, live streaming everything. Ilara stood at the yacht's railing, watching the chaos unfold like she was outside her own body. Monica stood beside her, phone in hand, scrolling through the explosion of coverage. It's everywhere, Monica said. Wall Street Journal has forensic accountants already analyzing the bank records. The Times is running a live blog. Twitter's melting down. And the Hales? No comment so far, but their stock dropped 18% in the last hour. Monica looked up. You actually did it. You're taking them down. Or they're about to destroy us. Ilara's hands gripped the railing hard enough that her knuckles went white. We released everything. If any of it's wrong, if there's one mistake they can exploit, then we deal with it. Kael appeared beside her, his face illuminated by the harsh lights from the shore. But we don't back down. Not now. A black sedan pushed through the crowd of press vehicles, its windows tinted dark. It stopped at the gate. The back door opened. Dominic Hale stepped out. Ilara's breath caught. Even from this distance, she could see the rage in his posture, shoulders tight, movement sharp. He spoke to one of the security guards, gestured toward the yacht. The guard shook his head. Dominic pulled out his phone, made a call. 30 seconds later, Ilara's phone rang. She looked at the screen. Dominic. Don't answer it, Kael said. She answered it anyway. Put it on speaker. You need to retract everything, Dominic said without preamble. His voice was tight, controlled, barely containing the fury underneath. Right now. Call a press conference, say you were mistaken, that the documents were fabricated. Were they fabricated, Dominic? You know they weren't. That's not the point. Then what is the point? The point is you just declared war on my family, and you have no idea what that means. His breathing was audible, harsh. My father has lawyers mobilizing right now. By morning, you'll be buried in lawsuits, defamation, theft of proprietary information, intentional infliction of emotional distress. They'll freeze your assets, seize your computers, make it impossible for you to function. Let them try. Alara, listen to me. No, you listen. Her voice was cold, steady. You spent 6 months sleeping with my sister while planning our wedding. Your family spent 5 years covering up fraud and murder. And now you're calling me, threatening me, because I had the audacity to tell the truth. So no, Dominic, I'm not retracting anything. Then you're going to lose everything. I already lost everything? The difference is, I chose to lose it. Silence on the other end. When Dominic spoke again, his voice had changed, softer, almost pleading. This doesn't have to be the end, he said. We can still fix this. You come back, we issue a joint statement saying you were manipulated, that you're getting help. My family won't press charges. Your family will take you back. You can have your life again. I don't want that life. You want poverty? Lawsuits? Being known as the woman who destroyed herself over a grudge? His voice hardened. Because that's what this is. Kael's using you for revenge, and you're too blind to see it. Alara looked at Kael. He was watching her, his expression unreadable. Maybe he is using me, she said into the phone. Or maybe we're using each other. Either way, it's my choice. Not yours, not my family's, mine. She hung up. The silence that followed felt heavy, weighted with everything they'd just committed to. Across the water, Dominic stood by his car, phone still to his ear. He lowered it slowly, stared at the yacht. Even from this distance, Alara could feel the weight of his anger. He got back in the car. It reversed, pushed back through the press crowd, and disappeared into the night. That was a mistake, Marshall said from behind them. He'd come back on deck, his face grim. You just refused their offer to back down. They're going to come at you with everything now. They were always going to come at us with everything, Kael said. At least now we're not pretending otherwise. Marshall's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression growing darker. Understood. Yes, we'll be there. He hung up, looked at Alara and Kael. That was Detective Moss. She wants to see us tonight, not tomorrow, tonight. At the precinct, not our office. Why the precinct? Monica asked. Because she's arresting one of us, Kael said quietly. The precinct was in a part of the city Alara had never visited. All concrete and fluorescent lights and the smell of old coffee and human misery. They arrived at 10 p.m., Marshall beside them, Monica waiting in the car. Inside, the building hummed with activity, cops processing arrests, phones ringing, someone shouting from a holding cell. Detective Moss met them in the lobby. Her expression was carefully neutral. Thank you for coming in, she said. Follow me. She led them to an interview room, small, windowless, a metal table bolted to the floor. The door closed behind them with a heavy click. Sit, Moss said. They sat. Moss remained standing, arms crossed. I'm going to keep this brief, she said. 6 hours ago, you released classified evidence to the public. Evidence that was part of an ongoing investigation. Evidence we specifically told you to keep confidential. We never agreed to keep it confidential, Marshall said. You asked for cooperation. We cooperated. What we did with our own research is our business. Is it? Moss pulled out a folder, dropped it on the table. Because the DA's office has been getting calls all night. From the Hale family's lawyers, from federal prosecutors, from people very high up the chain who are very concerned about how you obtained this information. We told you how we obtained it, Kael said. 5 years of research. Research that includes private financial records, internal communications, documents that should be protected by attorney-client privilege. Moss leaned forward, her hands flat on the table. You want to tell me again how you got access to all of this? Kael met her eyes. No. No? I'm not incriminating myself in an interview room without guarantees of immunity. Moss straightened, her jaw tight. You just made this very difficult. It was always going to be difficult, Kael said. The Hales have been breaking the law for years. My father died trying to expose them, and every time someone gets close, the system protects them. So forgive me if I'm not interested in playing by rules that only apply to one side. Those rules exist for a reason. Those rules got my father killed. The words hit like a hammer. Moss was quiet for a long moment, something shifting behind her eyes. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. I believe you, she said. About your father. About the Hales. I've been working this case for 18 months, and everything you've given us lines up with what we've found independently. But you releasing this evidence publicly, you might have just destroyed our ability to prosecute. Alara felt ice spread through her chest. What do you mean? I mean, defense lawyers are already arguing that the evidence was obtained illegally, that it's been contaminated by public exposure, that any case we build will be compromised by pre-trial publicity. Moss pulled out a chair, sat down heavily. The Hale family is filing motions to suppress everything. They're claiming you stole private documents, hacked into secure systems, violated a dozen different laws to get this information. We didn't, Alara started. I don't care if you did or didn't, Moss interrupted. I care about whether we can use this in court. And right now our legal team is telling me the answer is maybe. Maybe we can salvage enough to build a case, maybe we can't. And maybe isn't good enough when we're going up against lawyers who bill $10,000 an hour. Silence filled the room. Outside, someone was typing loudly, the sound echoing through thin walls. So what happens now? Marshall asked. Now, we do damage control. Moss pulled out a recording device, set it on the table. I need you to walk me through exactly how you obtained every piece of evidence you released. Every document, every email, every bank record. I need sources, methods, timestamps, and I need it all on record so we can prove to a judge that this wasn't illegal surveillance or hacking. And if we can't prove that, Kyle asked, then the case falls apart. The Hales walk. And you two will probably be facing criminal charges for theft and computer fraud. Alara's hands clenched under the table. This was the trap. Help the investigation and potentially incriminate themselves, or refuse to cooperate and watch everything they'd worked for collapse. We need immunity, Marshall said. Full immunity from prosecution for anything related to how this evidence was obtained. I can't guarantee that. Then we can't help you. Moss's expression hardened. You're making a mistake. We've already made a dozen mistakes, Kael said. What's one more? He stood. Alara and Marshall followed. Moss remained seated, her frustration visible. You walk out that door, you're on your own, she said. No protection, no legal cover. The Hales will come after you with everything, and I won't be able to help. We were always on our own, Kael said. They left the interview room, walked through the precinct, pushed back out into the night. The city was alive around them. Traffic, lights, people moving through their normal lives, completely unaware that two people had just bet everything on a gamble that might destroy them. Monica was waiting by the car. How bad? Bad, Alara said. They drove back to the marina in silence. The press had mostly dispersed, leaving behind a few stragglers with cameras. Security let them through without comment. The yacht rocked gently in its slip, a small island of temporary safety in water that was getting deeper and darker by the hour. Inside the main cabin, Kael poured whiskey for everyone who wanted it. Monica took a glass. Marshall declined. Alara took 2 fingers worth and drank it in one swallow, feeling the burn all the way down. We need to talk about next steps, Marshall said. Next steps? Monica laughed, sharp and bitter. The DA's office just told us they might not be able to prosecute. The Hales are filing lawsuits, and we're sitting on a boat because our wedding venue got bomb threats. What next steps are there? We keep fighting, Kael said. With what? We released all our evidence. We have no legal protection. We're out of moves. Not all of them. Kael pulled out his phone, opened a video file. There's one thing we didn't release. He turned the phone around. On the screen was footage from a security camera, grainy, time-stamped 5 years ago. It showed a parking garage, mostly empty. A man walked toward a car. Kael's father, Alara realized, recognizing him from old photos. He got in the car, started the engine. Nothing happened. He tried again. The engine caught, ran for maybe 3 seconds, then died. Kael's father got out, popped the hood, leaned in to look at the engine. A second figure appeared at the edge of frame. Male, wearing a maintenance uniform. He approached Kael's father, said something. They talked for maybe 30 seconds. Then the maintenance worker pulled out a phone, made a call. 2 minutes later, Kael's father got back in his car. Tried the engine again. This time it started. He pulled out of the parking garage. The video ended. I don't understand, Alara said. What are we looking at? My father's car, the day he died. Kael's voice was flat, emotionless. The parking garage of his office building. That maintenance worker? He rewound, froze the frame on the man's face. Is Anthony Castellano. He's worked security for the Hale family for 20 years. The implications hit Alara like a physical blow. He tampered with the car. He cut the brake line. Enough that it would hold for a few miles, but fail catastrophically once my father hit the highway. Kyle closed the video. I've had this footage for 4 years. Got it from a security company that went bankrupt, grabbed their archives before they were destroyed. But I couldn't do anything with it because I couldn't prove Castellano was working for the Hales at the time. It was just a coincidence. Wrong place, wrong time. Until now, Marshall said slowly. Until now. Because in the documents we released tonight, there's a payment record. A wire transfer from a Hale Industries shell company to Castellano made 3 days before my father died. $50,000, marked as consulting services. Silence crashed over the cabin. That's murder, Monica whispered. Not fraud, not embezzlement. Murder. Premeditated, paid for, covered up for 5 years. Cale looked at each of them. This video doesn't go to the DA. This goes to the FBI. Federal murder charges, witness tampering, conspiracy to commit murder. The Hales can't buy their way out of that. You're sure about this? Marshall asked. I've spent 5 years being sure about this. Then why didn't you release it with everything else? Because I needed to be certain the payment records were real first, and I needed to know who to trust in law enforcement. The local DA's office is too compromised, but the FBI, they don't have the same connections to the Hales. They can move independently. Marshall was quiet for a long moment, his lawyer's mind clearly running calculations. If you're wrong, if there's any question about the authenticity of that video or those payment records, I'm not wrong. Then you'll be charged with filing a false report, wasting federal resources, possibly obstruction. And the Hales will sue you for defamation on top of everything else. I know the risks. Do you? Because you're not just betting your own future here. You're betting Alara's. Marshall looked at her. You married this man 6 hours ago. Anything he does now legally implicates you. If he goes down, you go down with him. Alara felt the weight of that. The legal entanglement, the shared liability, the fact that she'd bound herself to Kyle in a way that went beyond strategy or convenience. They were a unit now, in the eyes of the law and everyone else. Show me the video again, she said. Kyle replayed it. She watched carefully this time, looking for anything that might be questioned. Angles, timestamps, potential for manipulation. But it looked authentic. Grainy and old, but real. Do it, she said. Alaris, I said do it. Send it to the FBI. All of it. The video, the payment records, everything. Cale studied her face. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He nodded slowly, opened his laptop, started composing an email. Marshall watched over his shoulder, occasionally suggesting changes to the wording, making sure everything was documented, time-stamped, sent through channels that couldn't be easily dismissed. At 11:47 p.m., Kyle hit send. The email went to 3 different FBI field offices, marked urgent, containing the security footage, payment records, and a detailed timeline connecting Anthony Castellano to the Hale family and to the death of Richard Draven. It's done, Cale said quietly. They sat in silence, waiting. Alara didn't know what she expected. Immediate response, federal agents storming the yacht, something cinematic. Instead, there was just quiet, the gentle rocking of the boat, the distant sound of traffic. Monica's phone buzzed first. She looked at it, her face going pale. The Hales just released a statement, she said. It's all over Twitter. She turned her phone around. The statement was from Dominic's father, Richard Hale, released through the company's official account. We are deeply saddened by the false and defamatory accusations made against our family tonight. These claims are the work of individuals with personal vendettas who have deliberately distorted facts to damage our reputation. We have full faith in the legal system and will pursue all available remedies to protect our name. We ask for privacy during this difficult time. That's it? Alara said. No denial of specific charges? No explanation of the evidence? They're playing defense, Marshall said. Classic crisis management. Acknowledge without engaging, express confidence in the system, position themselves as victims. It's working too. Monica scrolled through responses. Half of Twitter's calling them out, But the other half is saying you two are conspiracy theorists, that this is a vendetta, that the evidence could be faked. Cale's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. Mr. Draven? A man's voice, professional, clipped, speaking. This is Special Agent Thomas Rivera with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. We received your email 20 minutes ago. I need you to answer some questions. Kyle straightened. Go ahead. The security footage you sent. Where did you obtain it? Legally purchased archives from Sentinel Security Systems after they went bankrupt in 2021. I can provide receipts. And the payment record showing the transfer to Anthony Castellano, obtained as part of research into Hale Industries' financial practices. Original bank records, not copies. How did you access original bank records from a private corporation? Kyle paused. Marshall made a cutting gesture across his throat. Don't answer. I'd prefer to discuss that in person, Kyle said, with legal counsel present. That can be arranged. We're opening an investigation based on your submission. We'll need you to come in tomorrow morning for a formal interview, both you and your wife. The word wife still felt strange, foreign. Alara met Kyle's eyes across the cabin. We'll be there, Cale said. Good. And Mr. Draven? Don't leave the state. Don't destroy any evidence. Don't contact anyone connected to the Hale family. Understood? Understood. The line went dead. They're investigating, Monica said. Holy shit, they're actually investigating. They're following up on a tip, Marshall corrected. That's not the same as charging anyone. The FBI gets thousands of tips every day. Most of them go nowhere. But some of them don't. Kyle closed his laptop. Some of them bring down empires. But Alara couldn't sleep again. She lay in the cabin, listening to the yacht creak and settle, watching shadows move across the ceiling. Beside her, in the same bed, because there was only one and they were married now and it seemed stupid to pretend otherwise, Kyle breathed evenly. Not quite asleep, but close. You awake? She asked quietly. Yeah. Do you think we did the right thing? Silence for a moment, then, I think we did the only thing. That's not the same. No, it's not. He shifted, turning toward her in the darkness. You having regrets? I don't know. Ask me in 24 hours. Fair enough. They lay in silence. Outside, water lapped against the hull. Somewhere in the distance, a boat horn sounded. Can I ask you something? Alara said. Depends on the question. If this works, if the FBI actually brings charges, if the Hales go to prison, what happens to us? What do you mean? I mean this marriage, this partnership. Is it over when the revenge is done? Cale was quiet for so long she thought maybe he'd fallen asleep. Then, I don't know, he said. I spent 5 years planning how to destroy them. I never planned what comes after. Me neither. You want out once this is over? Did she? Alara turned the question over in her mind. 48 hours ago, she'd walked up to Kyle as a strategic move, a way to burn her old life and hurt the people who'd hurt her. Now she was legally bound to him, sleeping in the same bed, facing federal investigations and lawsuits and the collapse of everything familiar. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me thinks this whole thing is insane and we should cut our losses. But another part wants to see it through. Yeah, me too. His hand found hers in the darkness, squeezed once. So we see it through, together, and we figure out the rest later. It wasn't a promise of forever. It wasn't even a promise of next week. But it was honest, and right now, honesty was all they had. Alara closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Well, morning came too fast and too bright. They were at the FBI field office by 9 a.m., Marshall beside them, both dressed in clothes that walked the line between respectful and defiant. The office was in Lower Manhattan, all glass and security checkpoints, and the quiet hum of federal bureaucracy. Special Agent Rivera met them in the lobby, tall, maybe 50, with graying hair and eyes that looked like they'd seen every possible variation of human corruption. He led them to an interview room that was nicer than the one at the precinct, but still fundamentally the same. Table, chairs, recording equipment, no windows. Another agent joined them, a woman introduced as Special Agent Chen, Financial Crimes Division. She laid out folders, tablets, recording devices with the methodical precision of someone building a case. "Thank you for coming in," Rivera said. "Let's start with the basics. How did you two meet?" They walked through it. The engagement party, the confrontation with Dominic and Natalie, Ilara's impulsive proposal, the wedding on the yacht. Rivera and Chen listened without interruption, taking notes. "And when did you decide to investigate Hale Industries?" Chen asked. "I've been investigating them for 5 years," Kael said, "since my father's death." "Which you believe was murder." "Which I know was murder." "Walk us through that." Kael did. He laid out the timeline, his father's investigation into Hale Industries, the evidence he'd collected, the car accident 3 weeks before he planned to go public, the security footage showing Anthony Castellano at the parking garage, the payment record linking Castellano to the Hales. Rivera and Chen asked questions, probing for weaknesses, testing the strength of connections. They were good, professional, thorough, giving away nothing about whether they believed him. "And you, Miss Vance?" "Mrs. Draven," Ilara corrected. The name still felt strange in her mouth, but she claimed it anyway. "Mrs. Draven, what's your involvement in this investigation?" "I provided access and context. My family's company works with Hale Industries. I've been to their offices, their social events. I know the players." "And you believe these accusations are true?" "I know Dominic Hale lied to me for 6 months. I know his family threatened me when I started asking questions. I know the financial records don't lie." She leaned forward. "Whether you believe us or not, the evidence is there. All you have to do is look." Chen pulled out a tablet, opened a file. "We've been looking, for 18 months, actually. The DA's office referred this case to us last year when they hit roadblocks with local jurisdiction." Ilara felt something jump in her chest. "You were already investigating?" "We were gathering information, building a foundation. The documents you released last night," she shook her head. "You accelerated our timeline by about 6 months and compromised several ongoing operations." "Compromised how?" Marshall asked. "We had undercover agents embedded in Hale Industries subsidiaries. We had wiretaps authorized through federal warrants. We were building a RICO case, Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, that's conspiracy, fraud, money laundering, the whole package. But RICO cases take years to build because they have to be airtight." Chen looked at Kael. "Your document dump put the Hales on alert. They're destroying evidence, moving money, circling wagons. You might have just killed our case." The words landed like a physical blow. Kael's face went white, then red. "You've been investigating for 18 months and haven't arrested anyone?" "That's how federal cases work. We don't move until we can guarantee conviction. My father didn't have 18 months. He had 3 weeks, and then they killed him. We understand your frustration. Do you?" Kael stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like the FBI has been sitting on evidence of murder and fraud for a year and a half, while the Hales keep operating, keep destroying lives, keep walking around free." "Sit down, Mr. Draven." "No. I'm done sitting down. I'm done waiting for institutions to do their jobs. I gave you everything. 5 years of research, video evidence, payment records. And you're telling me I compromised your case? Maybe your case deserved to be compromised if it was moving that slowly." "Kael," Marshall said quietly. "Sit down." "They were never going to arrest them," Kael said, his voice rising. "That's what this is. They were going to investigate forever, collect evidence, write reports, and meanwhile the Hales would keep their lawyers tying everything up in court until everyone forgot or died or gave up." "That's not true," Rivera said. But there was something in his voice, a hesitation, maybe even guilt. "Isn't it?" Kael's hands were shaking. "Tell me, Agent Rivera, when were you planning to make arrests? This year? Next year? 5 years from now?" "We were planning to move within 6 months. We had a timeline approved by the assistant director." 6 months? My father's been dead for 5 years. 6 more months wouldn't bring him back, but it might have let the Hales move more money, destroy more evidence, hurt more people. Kael leaned on the table, his voice dropping to something hard and cold. "So forgive me if I'm not sorry I disrupted your comfortable timeline." Silence filled the room. Chen and Rivera exchanged a glance. Then Rivera pulled out his phone, stepped outside. Through the door, they could hear his muffled voice making a call. He came back in 2 minutes later, his expression unreadable. "The assistant director wants to see you," he said. "Both of you. Now." Bait. The assistant director's office was on the top floor, with windows overlooking the city and walls covered in commendations and photos of arrests, successful operations, moments of triumph. The woman behind the desk was in her 50s, sharp-eyed and composed, with the kind of presence that suggested she'd climbed this high by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone around her. "I'm Assistant Director Patricia Walsh," she said without preamble. "Sit." They sat. Walsh steepled her fingers, studied them both. "I've been briefed on your situation," she said, "and I'm going to be direct. You two just created a massive problem for this agency." "We created a problem?" Alara said. "The Hales have been committing fraud for years. The Hales are suspects in an ongoing federal investigation. Emphasis on suspects. We haven't proven anything yet. And now, thanks to your very public document release, every defense lawyer in the country is going to argue that our case is compromised by pretrial publicity and illegally obtained evidence." "The evidence wasn't obtained illegally," Kale said. "That remains to be seen. We've got forensic teams analyzing every document you released, trying to trace acquisition methods. If we find even one piece that was obtained through illegal means, hacking, theft, wiretapping without authorization, the entire case collapses." "Then you better hope we were careful." Walsh's expression hardened. "This isn't a game, Mr. Draven. We're talking about federal charges, potential prison time for dozens of people, hundreds of millions in fraudulent transactions. If this case falls apart because you two decided to play vigilante, people will walk free who should be behind bars. And if we'd done nothing, your 6-month timeline would have turned into 6 years. The Hales would have kept operating, kept buying influence, kept destroying anyone who got close. You don't know that, don't I?" Kyle pulled out his phone, opened a file, slid it across the desk. "That's a list of 15 people who've tried to expose the Hales in the past decade. 3 committed suicide. 4 lost their jobs under mysterious circumstances. 2 died in accidents. 1 disappeared entirely, and the rest recanted their statements after receiving what I'm sure were very generous settlements." Walsh looked at the list, her expression unreadable. "My father's name is on that list," Kyle continued. "Number 7, car accident, ruled mechanical failure. And I'll be damned if I let his death get buried under procedural delays and careful timelines while the people who killed him drink champagne at charity galas." Silence stretched across the office. Outside, the city moved. Traffic, construction, thousands of people going about their lives. Inside, 4 people sat at the edge of a decision that would determine whether justice was possible or whether power would win like it always did. Walsh closed the file. "All right," she said. "Here's what's going to happen. We're accelerating our timeline. Arrests will be made within 72 hours. We'll move simultaneously on multiple targets. Richard Hale, Dominic Hale, their CFO, their legal team, anyone who is complicit in the fraud or the cover-up of your father's death." Hale straightened. "You're serious?" "I'm serious. But there are conditions." Walsh looked at both of them. "First, you cooperate fully. Every piece of evidence you have, every source, every method of acquisition, you hand it over and you testify about it under oath. Second, you stay out of the press. No interviews, no statements, no social media. We control the narrative from here on out. Third, you accept witness protection if we determine it's necessary." "Witness protection?" Alara said. "The Hales have resources. If they believe you're the reason they're going to prison, they will retaliate. We've already intercepted communication suggesting they're looking into ways to discredit you, hurt you, maybe worse." Walsh's voice was flat, clinical. "We can protect you, but only if you follow our protocols." Kael looked at Alara. She looked back. They'd started this together, impulsively, desperately, with no real plan beyond burn it all down. Now they were being offered something concrete, protection, justice, a chance to actually win. "We'll do it," Alara said. "Both of you?" "Both of us." Walsh nodded, pulled out a tablet, started typing. "Agent Chen will coordinate with you on evidence transfer. Agent Rivera will handle security protocols. You'll be moved to a safe location tonight, not the yacht, somewhere more secure, and you'll remain there until arrests are made." "How long?" Kyle asked. 72 hours. Maybe less if everything moves smoothly. She looked up. Can you hold on for 72 hours? We've held on for 5 years, Kael said. What's 3 more days? The safe house was in Queens, a nondescript building that looked like every other apartment complex on the block. 2 bedrooms, basic furniture, windows with bulletproof glass that looked like normal glass until you rapped on it with your knuckles. 2 FBI agents stationed outside the door at all times. Monica had been allowed to visit once, bringing clothes and Alara's laptop and a fierce hug that lasted maybe 10 seconds. You're insane, she'd whispered, but I'm proud of you. Then she was gone, and Alara and Kael were alone. They spent the first day organizing evidence, going through every document, every email, every piece of information they'd collected, and explaining to a team of FBI forensic accountants exactly where it came from and how they'd verified it. The process was exhausting, tedious, necessary. The second day was worse. Lawyers arrived. Not Marshall, who'd been deemed too close to the case, but federal prosecutors who asked the same questions 17 different ways, looking for inconsistencies, preparing for what would happen when the Hales defense team inevitably challenged everything. By the third day, Alara was climbing the walls. She stood at the window looking down at the street below, watching normal people live normal lives. A mother with a stroller, a delivery truck double parked, 2 kids playing basketball in a driveway across the street. You okay? Kael asked from behind her. I don't know. Am I allowed to leave this apartment? Technically, no. That's what I thought. She pressed her forehead against the glass. It was cool, solid. I keep thinking about what happens after. After the arrests? After everything. When the trial's over, when the Hales are in prison or not in prison, when the dust settles, what do we do then? Kael moved to stand beside her. What do you want to do? I don't know. A week ago, I had a plan. Marry Dominic, merge the companies, have 2.5 children and a house in Connecticut. It was all mapped out. And now? Now I'm married to someone I barely know, hiding in a safe house in Queens, waiting to find out if the people who've spent the last 5 years trying to destroy you are going to prison. She laughed, a sound with no humor in it. I don't even know what normal looks like anymore. Maybe normal's overrated. Easy for you to say. You've been living in chaos for 5 years, and it nearly killed me. Kael's voice was quiet. Every day for 5 years, I woke up thinking about revenge, how to get it, who to hurt, what it would feel like when I finally won. It consumed everything, relationships, career, any chance at actually being happy. And you know the worst part? What? I'm not even sure I'll feel better when it's done. What if we win, and I'm still empty? What if destroying them doesn't bring my father back or fix what broke inside me? Alara turned to look at him. In the harsh afternoon light, she could see the exhaustion carved into his face, the weight he'd been carrying for so long it had become part of his skeleton. Then we figure out how to live anyway, she said. Together or separately, I don't know. But we figure it out. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out, read the message. His expression changed, something sharp and electric. What? Alara asked. They're moving. Arrests happening tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Simultaneous raids on the Hale estate, their corporate offices, and 3 subsidiary locations. Alara's heart kicked into overdrive. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. He looked at her. You ready? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He smiled, a real smile this time, not the hard, cold one she'd seen before. That's becoming our motto. They stood at the window together, watching the sun sink toward the horizon, knowing that tomorrow everything would change. Either the Hales would fall, or they would, and there was no middle ground left. Alara reached for Kael's hand. He took it, and they waited for morning. 6 a.m. came with the sound of helicopters. Alara woke to it, the deep thump of rotors, multiple aircraft converging on locations across the city. She grabbed her phone, checked the news. Breaking alerts scrolled across every major outlet. FBI raids. Hale Industries headquarters. Federal agents arrest CEO, Richard Hale, on fraud charges. Dominic Hale taken into custody at family estate. She rushed to the living room where Kael was already watching coverage on 3 different screens. News helicopters showed federal agents swarming the Hale Industries building, leading people out in handcuffs. Another feed showed the family estate surrounded by police vehicles. Her phone rang. Agent Rivera. "It's done," he said. "Richard Hale, Dominic Hale, their CFO Marcus Thornton, and 6 other executives are in custody. We've seized computers, files, hard drives. Financial records are being cataloged as we speak." "What about Anthony Castellano?" Kyle asked, his voice tight. "Arrested at his home in New Jersey an hour ago. He's being transported to federal holding now. We're charging him with conspiracy to commit murder, along with the fraud charges." Elara felt something break open in her chest. Relief, maybe, or vindication, or the simple recognition that they'd actually done it. They'd taken on one of the most powerful families in the city and won. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we build the case. Arraignments will happen within 24 hours. We'll need you both to testify before the grand jury, probably within the week." Rivera paused. "You should know, this is going to get ugly. The Hales lawyers are already filing motions, calling press conferences. They're going to try everything to get this dismissed." "Let them try," Kale said. "We will, but you need to be prepared for a fight. This could take months, maybe years. Trials, appeals, media coverage. Your lives are going to be under a microscope." "They already are," Elara said. After Rivera hung up, they sat in silence, watching the coverage unfold. Reporters speculated about charges, showed photos of Richard and Dominic Hale being led into federal buildings, interviewed legal experts who debated whether the case would hold up. Alara's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "I hope you're happy now. You've destroyed everything." She stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Another text, this one from Natalie. "This isn't over. You think you've won, but you haven't. We're going to fight this, and when we win, you'll have nothing left." Elara showed it to Kyle. "She's scared," he said. "Good, she should be." They watched the coverage for another hour, seeing the empire they'd spent a week dismantling finally collapse in real time. By noon, Hale Industries stock had been suspended from trading. By evening, their board had released a statement placing the company under new management and cooperating fully with federal investigators. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like standing in ruins, surveying the damage, wondering what came next. Marshall called that evening. "I need you both to come to my office tomorrow. We need to talk about your legal exposure." "What exposure?" Kale asked. "The Hales are countersuing. Defamation, theft, intentional infliction of emotional distress. They're asking for $50 million in damages." Elara felt the floor drop out from under her. $50 million? It's a pressure tactic. They know you don't have that kind of money. They're trying to force you to settle, to retract your statements, to compromise the federal case. Marshall's voice was grim. "We'll fight it, but you need to be prepared for a long legal battle. This doesn't end with the arrests." After he hung up, Elara sat on the couch, her head in her hands. Kyle sat beside her. "Hey," he said quietly. "We knew this wouldn't be clean." "I know. She looked up at him. "For about 5 minutes this morning, I thought we'd won. Actually won. And now they're suing us for $50 million, and we're still going to be fighting for years." "Yeah. Was it worth it?" Kyle was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Ask me in 24 hours. The grand jury testimony happened on a Tuesday morning in a federal courthouse that smelled like marble and old decisions. Elara sat in the witness chair, hand on a Bible she didn't believe in anymore, swearing to tell the truth in front of 23 strangers who would decide whether the Hales faced trial. The prosecutor was a woman named Sarah Mendez, mid-40s, with the kind of sharp precision that came from winning cases nobody else thought were winnable. She walked Elara through everything: the engagement party, finding Dominic with Natalie, the decision to marry Kyle, the investigation into Hale Industries, the threats that followed. "And when Mr. Hale contacted you after you released the evidence," Mendez asked, "what did he say?" "He said his family would bury me in lawsuits, that they had resources I couldn't imagine, that I should retract everything or lose everything." "Did you interpret that as a threat?" "I interpreted it as the truth." Elara looked at the grand jury members, saw some sympathetic faces, some skeptical. "The Hale family has been threatening people for years. Anyone who gets close to exposing them either backs down or gets destroyed. I refuse to back down." "Why?" Because my husband's father died trying to expose them. Because they've been breaking the law for a decade and getting away with it. Because someone had to stop them. The questioning went on for 2 hours. Mendez was thorough, methodical, building a narrative brick by brick. When she was done, the grand jury foreman thanked Alara for her testimony and dismissed her. In the hallway, Kyle was waiting. He'd already given his testimony, had sat through 3 hours of questions about his father's investigation, the security footage, the payment to Castellano. He looked exhausted. "How'd it go?" he asked. "I don't know. They didn't give anything away." "They never do." He took her hand, squeezed once. "Come on, Marshall wants to talk to us." They found Marshall in a conference room down the hall, surrounded by legal documents and looking like he hadn't slept in days. He probably hadn't. "Sit," he said without preamble. They sat. "The grand jury will deliberate for maybe an hour," Marshall said. "They'll almost certainly return indictments. The evidence is too strong for them not to, but that's when the real fight starts. The Hales have hired the best defense attorneys money can buy, Sullivan and Cromwell, out of New York. They've already filed motions to suppress evidence, dismiss charges, change venue. This is going to be a war of attrition." "How long?" Alara asked. 12 to 18 months before trial, maybe longer if they keep filing delays." "And the countersuit?" Marshall's expression darkened. "That's moving faster. They've scheduled depositions for next month. They're claiming you and Cale engaged in a coordinated campaign to destroy their reputation through false accusations and illegally obtained evidence. They want $50 million in damages, plus legal fees." "We don't have $50 million, Alara said. "They know that. This isn't about money. It's about breaking you. They want you to spend every dollar you have defending yourselves until you're bankrupt and desperate and willing to settle."